All right, what's going on? Drive time, Friday afternoon, 3 minutes past the hour of 2 o'clock. Been kind of a nice day. Been kind of a cooler, I would say, final portion of the week. It is going to warm up a little bit over the weekend, but right now it's about 79 degrees. There are some clouds in the sky. We're expecting some rain showers starting at about 5 or 6 o'clock tonight, up to 90 degrees coming up next week. And then, the weather will change day to day this time of year as we are high speed ahead to fall. But happy Friday to you. Congratulations. You did make it to the weekend. It is weekend time. And hopefully you have something fun planned for your weekend. Maybe you're going to get out, do a little hiking, walk the dog, maybe a little camping, swing a golf club. Take advantage of this beautiful time of year as we're high speed ahead to fall, which means we are high speed ahead to college and pro football. We are now officially less than 3 weeks away from the start of the season for Utah. And as of tomorrow, it will be 3 weeks away for the start of the season for both Utah State and BYU. We'll do some college football in the program today and get you ready for the start of the season. Take advantage of this opportunity to remind you that if you are looking for Utah football sound, if that's all you want, in the mode for college football this mid-August time of year, ESPN 700sports.com is where you go for Morgan Scalley, for Kevin McGivern, for Colton Swan, Sharif Shah, and a number of different players, Devin Dampier, Bert Ficklin, you name it, up there at ESPN700sports.com is where you go to get it. David Hale from ESPN has ranked all 138 FBS teams in tiers. It is poll season with a P. I will take this opportunity to remind you that preseason polls, A, have always been meaningless, and B, probably have never been more meaningless as a result of the ability to rebuild your roster in one off season, issues that they're trying to tide with some of the stuff that's in the Protect College Sports Act. By the way, the vote for that has been pushed back to September, as we thought it would. Here's your tease. Utah and Michigan are in the same tier in David Hale's college football tiers today on ESPN.com. So we'll kind of dig into some of the storylines going around to get you ready for the start of college football. I don't know. Am I the only one that's fascinated with this sale of the Lakers? I mean, every single day we get more and more information. Mark Walter basically has been running a Ponzi scheme through the insurance companies that he owns in Delaware and Virginia to bankroll the Dodgers, to bankroll the Lakers, and now he is in trouble. He has got to find a way to make some cash as soon as he possibly can. But some new information has come to light as far as what he's being investigated for. The feds raided a private plane and took his cell phone and his laptop. Not a ton of information. Bob Iger and Joshua Kushner just appear to be guys that were in the right place at the right time, trying to get into NBA ownership with the Vegas expansion project. And then they caught wind that Mark Walters needs cash. And so they kind of capitalized on it. So on the scale of holy smokes, this is beyond ridiculously illegal on one end, or Mark Walter just needed a cash grab on the other. Where the truth is difficult to pin down, is what I'd say. But there are a lot of things going on about this Mark Walter guy, who for years and years and years has been known as kind of like a guy that's just been trying to sit at the back of the bus and not be noticed while he's making a bunch of money. The nuts and bolts of it is, the Cliff Notes version of it is, basically these insurance companies went out and peddled policies and annuities to older folk and had them pay premiums month over month for life insurance policies, annuities and such, and then utilized that money to fund these other companies, namely the Dodgers, and they were going to do the same thing for the Lakers. It appears... And I did not finish business school. I do not have my MBA. But this appears to be as much of a Ponzi scheme as anything I've ever seen in the world of professional sports. So this story continues just to be chaotic. The NBA offseason, for the most part, has more or less died down. There was a minor transaction today. Dennis Schroeder is traded again. How many times has Dennis Schroeder been traded is what I want to know. He's going to the Hornets, and Trey Mann is going to go to the Cavs. So there you go. There's your hot NBA storyline right out of the gates. Of course, Russell Westbrook announced his retirement. The Utah Jazz have 15 players under contract, barring something completely unforeseen. Have to imagine that this is the team we're going to see when the Jazz roll into training camp. And then when the season starts, we'll do some Jazz schedule stuff today because we didn't get to do that on the show yesterday. We were pretty packed with a bunch of other things. So Walker Kessler back in town October the 25th with the LA Lakers, and ultimately some other highlights for Jazz fans to look forward to, as we are all kind of expecting at least somewhat of a jump forward for the Utah Jazz. The Walker Kessler transaction changes them, of course, for the interim, and we'll see what they're able to do long term. So we'll get to some Jazz basketball on the program today. Some NFL offseason storylines. We saw an NFL preseason game. Fernando Mendoza. I always confuse them because one's a great pitcher. Threw his first NFL touchdown pass, as we did see some preseason NFL football. Interesting storyline right now with both Tom Brady and Troy Aikman calling NFL games while being tied to NFL teams. So some new guidelines put in place for Troy Aikman and Tom Brady as they're going to call games for ESPN and Fox this year. Aikman is a consultant for the Dolphins, and Brady, of course, has an ownership stake in the Raiders. So they're not going to be allowed to attend in-person meetings and facilities. They're going to have to attend all the meetings via Zoom. But I tell you, one of the things that came to my mind is Dwayne Wade works for NBA TV and does some work for Turner. Like, he's always on these broadcasts, sometimes doing games and sometimes on the dais. And Dwayne Wade, I guess, is still technically a minority investor in the Utah Jazz. Not really sure how that works, because that flies against what you're supposed to be able to do if you're a part of an ownership group in professional sports. So some interesting stuff on the NFL broadcast side of things. As we talked about yesterday, RSL has advanced to the quarterfinals of the Leagues Cup, and they're going to potentially qualify for a big-time tournament, the CONCACAF Club Championship. I think they've rebranded that. They rebrand all these cups every year. It's hard to keep track. So they just need one win in the knockout round of the Leagues Cup. 3 wins will win them the tournament, where they get a nice little financial benefit and then lift a trophy. RSL has not lifted a trophy since 2009. It's been 17 years. Back to MLS play coming up tomorrow against Minnesota. And both Jason Kreis and Kurt Schmidt. Jason was my guest on Talkin' Real last night at 10:35 on KMYU. Kurt Schmidt joined the program earlier this week. They're both speaking in terms that you just kind of have to ascertain that they're trying to add some pieces to this team prior to the summer window closing, which will be on September the 2nd. Justin Glad's injury is a concern. They've lost, obviously, Xavier Gozo now lives in London and plays for Crystal Palace. So I would imagine a center back, potentially a 9 to help Sergei Solins, because Victor Olatunji has not proven to be the player we thought he might be. So we're inching closer and closer to kind of fall soccer, playoff soccer, but plenty of matches left. 17 matches left in MLS play for RSL. Then the Leagues Cup journey continues as well. So the World Cup break actually was a little bit serendipitous for where RSL finds itself now, needing reinforcements. But in the MLS calendar, the summer window has come and gone, and then leaving 6 matches left to try to get your new pieces acclimated. They tried to do that last year with Olatunji. The other, Ruan Cruz, if I remember correctly, was the other player they brought in. And Olatunji looked pretty good, but Cruz never was able to settle in, didn't have a lot of time. So we'll get to some soccer stuff on the program. The world of professional golf, it is the battle for the FedEx Cup. We're high speed ahead to the fall series. Of course, that is of interest here. The Bank of Utah Championship down at the Black Desert Resort. I am going to go this year, which I'm really excited about. That will come your way in October. But Scotty Scheffler, when Scotty decides to settle in, he still is showing these players that he is the best player in the world. He had a decent round yesterday, but but he has shot to the top of the leaderboard of the FedEx St. Jude Championship. TPC South win in Memphis, Tennessee. Looks like a really cool yet challenging track. And Scotty is 8 under through 16 holes today. He's moved up 16 spots. He's your leader by 2 strokes over Sungjae Im. Scotty's at 10 under. Sungjae Im is at 8 under par. Tommy Fleetwood, Jordan Spieth, Ludwig Oberg, all at 6 under par. Wyndham Clark and Patrick Hanley at 5 under par. So the best golfers in the world qualifying for this time of year. And a cool $20 million on the table. Justin Rose won this tournament last year, but he has had a horrible go. He is 2 over. That is 53rd. So no repeat there. But we'll kind of keep you up to date, talk a little golf on the program today. There's still a lot of really good players on the course. A lot of players done. Scotty is through 16 holes. 2 holes to play, already at 8 under. See if he can get a birdie over the final 2. So a little pro golf on the program as well. The latest with this saga down in Provo that has kind of dominated the local sports media ecosystem here in Salt Lake over the past 72 hours. There's not a lot of new stuff going on, but there are a lot of people pontificating about exactly what's going on behind the scenes when it comes to, and I talked about this yesterday. We'll get into it a little bit today. Some college football guests on the show. When I've heard Kalani over the past week or so express himself the way that he has, I honestly, it's reminded me a little bit of Witt, like taking some things out of Kyle's playbook. And it's not just Kyle Whittingham. It's not just Kalani. But I'll ask you this, like, have you heard Morgan bellyache yet about resources? Have you heard Morgan bellyache yet about lack of, financial support? He hasn't said a thing about it, which I find kind of interesting because most college football coaches, as soon as a microphone is put in front of their face, it's like the first thing they talk about. Morgan, during Big 12 Media Day, because he sat down with Sean and I for a good, 20-minute conversation, he basically just said, look, if I win games, people are going to donate. Boosters are going to step up. If we win football games, everything else will fall into place. And I understand where Kalani is coming from because it does sound like there were a lot of promises that were made to him that have not been delivered. And we're 3 weeks away from a game. If they're not being delivered by now, they're not going to be delivered prior to the season. I get it. It's an interesting approach when you're so close to game day to decide to air this publicly. I think BYU's lost the plot a little bit with their messaging, and now it is spread in the public square. And once that happens, it's hard to put that toothpaste back in the tube. It just kind of is now part of the way people are discussing the state of your athletic department less than, well, I should say just a little over 3 weeks away from your first game. So I'm not trying to make this a Morgan versus Kalani thing or a Utah versus BYU thing. I always feel like when it comes to fall camp, if you can escape fall camp with 2 things, then you're in a really good space. Number 1, full health. You escape fall camp, nobody gets hurt, you're good to go. Number 2, you just kind of like it when it's quiet. You just kind of like it when there's not a lot of drama. You don't want a quarterback battle like Alabama's going through a quarterback battle right now. You don't want a quarterback battle, a couple of weeks prior to the start of the season. You want to know who your guy is under center. It's okay to have positional battles for like your D tackle, which Utah appears to have, or maybe who's going to be your wide receiver 1, like BYU appears to have. But when it comes to a little bit of drama behind the scenes, that's not what you want this close to game day, especially when, for a lot of people, you're the favorite to win the Big 12, like BYU is. So, getting at some college football storylines on the show today. All right, our first guest will be Howard Beck, who covers the NBA from The Ringer. See if Howard's been following this Lakers story, because, again, every single day there's another think piece written or there's another podcast recorded, because Mark Walter is no longer the quiet dude sitting in the back of the bus hoping nobody notices him while he apparently is using annuities and life insurance money from people that he's sold policies to fund his sports teams. And now he's in trouble to the tune of like $18.6 billion. Like, he needs cash, and that's why he decided to sell the Lakers. I want to talk Russell Westbrook with Howard. We'll do a little Jazz as well, now that we kind of know what the Jazz roster is going to look like. We'll do some football and some basketball with Bullard today, the voice of the Jazz, Craig Bolerjack. I will tease that the former Utah quarterback and my longtime radio partner, Frank Dolce, has committed to make an appearance on the show. But he's the flakiest human I know. I'm a nickname guy, okay? Like my friends, they know that. I like to give people nicknames. I don't know that there's a nickname that I'm more proud of than the Human Detour that I gave Frank Dolce when we were doing radio back in the day. Just to give you a little sneak peek, when Frank and I were doing radio together, the clock, it was a midday show. So the clock would be at 11 o'clock. Boom. I come in. I'm in studio solo. Frank is nowhere to be found. And when I realized what a distracted individual he was, I started scripting our show. We had 9 non-guest segments, and for every segment, I would give him a headline and then a bullet point list of basically how to attack the topic. Frank would walk in about 8 minutes late. I'd hand him a stack of papers. He'd throw them to the side and pull out the USA Today sports section and start to prep after we were on air for 8 minutes. So he has agreed to come on the program. Can I guarantee that's going to happen? I cannot. That's why he is the ultimate human detour. And then we'll talk some golf with Paul Pugmire on this Friday afternoon. Howard Beck, Craig Bolerjack, Frank Dolce, Paul Pugmire, me, Spence Checketts. Hello, how are you? Happy Friday. Congratulations. Happy weekend. And that guy who, more or less, I will say you're usually on time. I'll give you that. Porter Larson.
How do you know?
Because you're here when we start the show every day.
Yes.
I don't care if you're here before 1:59, dude, as long as you're here by 2.
Yeah. I am habitually, like as a human, habitually like 5-10 minutes late for everything except for radio, because that's just not going to work. If you have this clock set and then we just turn into our bump song and you hear nothing but that for 7-8 minutes, someone's going to, I said 7-8 on purpose.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Nice work.
Stop doing that.
Nice work.
Someone's probably going to call, and they might be our boss. So I do get here on time, at least.
I did a podcast this last week. One of my buddies who I grew up with back east, his kid wants to get in the business. And so he's been doing the podcast for a couple of years, just graduated from journalism school back east, and he's trying to make his way. And he asked me, he said, so when it comes to live radio, like how are you guys able to make it work? Like if you say something that you regret saying, or if you make a mistake on air, I'm like,
buddy,
you don't, you just keep going. Like, he's like, you can't just like stop and kill the segment and do it again. I'm like, no, like literally what I say to this microphone in real time goes out to the people in real time. There's no editing. This is just the deal. Kind of blew his mind.
We could press a button and literally dump the station off of the air. But your words are probably still getting out there.
I know. There's a tremendous amount of trust that occurs in this host-producer relationship. How do you think it's going?
I think it's going pretty well.
Outside
of
no,
a few technical difficulties at some point.
I was going to say, let's let that. It's been a few years since that happened. We're going to let that one die on the vine. I don't think anyone remembers. I do have the clip in my email, and occasionally I listen to it, and I'll play it for a select number of people.
Of course.
It's good for a laugh, but that was a rough day. Okay, we've moved on. We're good now.
It's good for a laugh now.
It wasn't then.
No.
A strongly worded document was sent into my file to make sure that I remembered what I had done. Anyway, Howard Beck will join us. Excited to bring on Howard today to talk some NBA. This Lakers sale is just wild. But before Howard stops by, courtesy of our friends at IFA Country Stores, it is time now for your opening tip. Now, like any good coach, it's time to update the game plan for a healthy green lawn as the hot weather continues this month. Make sure you're using IFA Step 3 Spring and Summer Lawn Food for healthy turf that stays green every season. IFA Step 3 Lawn Food, it's the ultimate lawn owner power move. I want to let you know also you can help Utah kids start school with confidence. Over 200 kids at the road home need your help with back-to-school clothes, shoes, backpacks, and more. ESPN 700 invites you to be a child's advocate. Visit ESPN700sports.com or appletreeforkids.com for more information and to donate now. All right. When it comes to preseason polls, as I say every year, and I have said for years, this is not a new thing. They serve one purpose. Okay, they serve one purpose. That is for college football fans like you to have something to read and to click, to kind of, quench that appetite prior to game day, and for talking heads like me to use for content on the show. Do they tell the accurate picture and story of how this season is going to go? They absolutely do not. They very rarely do not. Now, the national champion and the main contenders in college football, more often than not, are in like the top 7 or 8. And when you look at the Vegas odds this year, And when you look at prediction markets and even some polls, there are ultimately 6 or 7 teams, that have a chance to win the national championship. Okay, so I like David Hale. He does a good job for ESPN. He's a good writer. And he tiers these teams, okay, as opposed to saying this team is number 1, this team, 1 through 25. He doesn't do that. He tiers his team. So he did his annual tiers today, okay? So let's go over this a little bit. Because one of the goals I have here prior to the start of the season, which is 3 weeks away now, and I honestly don't have an accurate pulse on this. It's one of the reasons why most of my college football guests, like our friends from Ute Zone or Bill or whoever comes on to talk about Utah football, and I kind of just asked them, generally speaking, what's your understanding of what most people are expecting from Utah this year? Sammy Mora from Ute Zone yesterday went as far as to say it feels like a lot of people think they're not even going to be good. I don't know that I would go that far. And David Hale actually thinks Utah has a chance to be very good. So his tiers go like this. Number 1, he calls them the safest bets. And this is to win the national championship, okay? Indiana, Miami, Notre Dame, and Ohio State. Of course, BYU sees Notre Dame down in Provo coming up. That's probably the biggest non-conference game any Big 12 team has. Kirk Cignetti and Indiana have set this blueprint that literally every coach talks about as it pertains to what they're trying to accomplish because of what a lightning rocket ship that thing was. He took over. They were kind of good. Then they were good. Then they were the best team in America by far. Then you move over to tier 2, which he calls trust issues. But I would say these 3 teams are also teams that most people believe can win the whole thing. Georgia, Oregon, Texas. Okay? I was surprised to see Georgia on the second tier because most people believe, at least from my seat, that Georgia might be the best team in America. I've seen some Notre Dame national championship picks, namely Joel Klatt. But that's tier 2. So tier 3, as we scroll down, it says maybe this is their year. LSU, USC, Oklahoma, Texas A&M, Texas Tech, and BYU. Maybe this is their year. He has BYU tier 3, okay? Tier 4, we're still here. Teams that he considers that you have to give them a chance because they're going to be in the mix. Alabama, Ole Miss, Michigan, and Utah. He has Utah in the same tier as Michigan. And I think I told this anecdote on air the other day. I was at an event a couple of weeks ago, and there were some pretty powerful Utah alums, Utah boosters. I was sitting next to them during dinner, and Utah football popped up, and we were kind of talking about what to expect and how much they like Morgan, all the things. And I just turned the question back around on them. I said, what are you expecting for? What are you hoping for year 1 from Morgan Scalley? And one of them turned to me and said, as long as they're better than Michigan. As long as they're better than Michigan. That was the only litmus test. If football gods are a real thing, and those of us that believe in the message of football because how great is ball, believe that they are, a Utah-Michigan CFP matchup has to happen. It just does.
Why not?
That would potentially be the biggest event in the history of our state.
I mean, it would be a lot of fun, and the storylines would be aplenty. The funny thing is, the only time that Utah's ever been better than Michigan, including a couple of wins in the Big House and otherwise, Kyle Whittingham was on this sideline. Now he's leading the charge at the Big House. It would be quite the full circle moment, I'm sure, for him and Morgan Scalley for sure. Man, I'm with you. Football gods, if you're here in this rainy August afternoon here in Salt Lake City, just listen to us.
Are we approaching the summer solstice? Do you know if Mercury's in retrograde or is there's going to be like a meteor shower?
I believe next week.
Okay,
solstice time.
I believe like your generation, your damn generation, when the summer solstice is doing its thing, isn't this the time for us to manifest the things that we want in our lives? Isn't that how this works? You're the weather guy. You need to have the info.
Sorry, the summer solstice, when it begins, is actually June 21st.
So we missed it.
The last day of summer, which I guess maybe is our last chance.
Well, what about Mercury in retrograde? I kept hearing that, whatever that means.
September 22nd.
Okay,
so we still got a month.
So please mark our calendars. September 22nd, we are going to manifest a Michigan-Utah CFP matchup.
And no, Mercury's not in a retrograde right now.
That explains so much. I knew I felt off.
October 24th is your next.
Okay, so set the calendar, set 2 dates, September 22nd and October 24th. We will be manifesting Utah, Michigan in the CFP.
And both of those 2 dates, coincidentally, on the football schedule, we'll learn a lot more. We'll have the Utes non-con, mostly in the rear view. And then come late October, we know the deal. The games in November, Spence, are the games to remember.
Well said. Utah has lost 12 straight games to ranked opponents by an average of 13 points per game. That's going back to 2022. I didn't realize that. That hurts. Anyway.
To be fair.
Oh, we've got context.
A lot of those are bowl games and, like, not just ranked opponents, but Ohio State otherwise.
Yeah. Okay.
Penn State.
Got an apologist in there.
No, just saying. If you're losing to the Big Ten teams, it could be worse.
Beat the good teams on your schedule. I'm old school. Results over vibes on this side of the microphone.
Well, and to be clear, if you win those games, if you're the head ball coach, you probably don't have boosters who are ready to move on to another era, if you will. So, yes, I agree. Win those games. Win all the games. That's the goal. And you keep people who have the checkbooks, they're pretty happy when you beat those big names.
I'd like to underscore Porter's opinion there. I also would like them to win all the games.
There you go.
I think that should be Morgan's ethos moving forward. All right, we'll get back to this. Frank Dolce might be in studio. You never know. But we'll catch a break. What's the deal with Mark Walters and the Lakers? This is a weird story. Howard Beck will join us. We're going to do some jazz schedule with Bowler, some college football with Dolce, maybe, then some golf with Paul Pugmire. Friday show. Keep it here, ESPN 700. Craig Bowlerjack's going to join us. We'll do some Jazz schedule stuff with Bowler. Walker Kessler back in town on October the 25th. Frank Dolce, former Utah quarterback. And then we'll check in with Paul Pugmire, do a little golf with Paul. But it's been a weird NBA offseason, and I thought it would be a good day to bring in our guy Howard Beck from The Ringer. Howard, I have your Blue Sky pulled up, and you I don't know what year this is. You've got a nice goatee. I did not even know that you wore glasses. These clothes are very baggy, so this is giving like 1990s vibe. And you have your hand on the NBA trophy. What's going on here?
Good to talk to you, Spence. Thank you for bringing me into Gaslight Anthem.
For sure.
So that photo, which features not only me, but J.A. Adande, Tim Kawakami, Bill Plaschke, Brad Turner, all of us members of the expanded Laker beat back in the day. This is the day that they celebrated their 2000 championship after beating the Pacers in the finals. And this was the parade day. So we all covered the parade out in like 100-degree blazing downtown LA heat, out there for hours on end. I don't think we had water. I probably didn't have sunscreen. And then we get marched into Staples Center because that's where the players and their families are now going to celebrate after the parade. And we thought, well, maybe we'll get a few minutes to like chat with a couple players. And you usually don't get a lot, but that's what you're there for, right? You're covering the scene and the crowd, the fans, and the celebration, but then you want to try to get players, coaches, whoever's available. So we go in, and while we're in there finally cooling off and maybe grabbing like some free food, they say, hey, you guys want to get your photo with the trophy? We've got a room set up here. And they've been, probably ushering through all the players and their families and friends and staffers and whoever to go get their photo with the Larry O'Brien trophy. And so the Laker beat gets in the room, and we ridiculously stand around the photo. Somebody draped their credential over it. You can see in the photo. And yeah, we're cooked, man. So there's a lot to gather in that photo. It is posted on Twitter also. Logan Murdoch put it there. But the reason the photo's there today and on the other site as well is because we at The Ringer on the Real Ones pod started this new series that Logan is hosting called NBA Lore, in which he does a deep dive on moments or teams. And so the first one, which came out this week, was an interview with me and Tim Kawakami, who was covering the Lakers for the LA Times back then. And so it's the two of us talking about the 99-2000 Lakers and that championship, which was an excuse to then bust out this absolutely preposterous photo of all of us. And yes, I don't know. I can't explain my goatee then. The glasses, that was like the last year I wore glasses before I got LASIK. I have to wear them again now because it's been a lot of years and I'm old. Yeah, there you go. The clothes are baggy. I can't, the shirt is way too big. I think I still have those shorts, cargo shorts. So, yeah, there you go.
This looks nothing like you. I mean, when I first saw the picture, I'm like, why is Howard? Because it's definitely Plaschke. It's easy to spot Plaschke. I did not know that was J.A. because he looks super. That's a hell of a mustache. But honestly,
yes.
I'm looking at this person that you claim is you, and I don't think it is. It looks nothing like you.
I'm like, were you a Game of Thrones fan?
Yeah.
The man with no face.
Ah.
I'm just constantly ever evolving and trying different faces. I'll take that as a compliment, generally speaking, but that is me like 26 years ago. It's been a minute or two, so I shouldn't look exactly the same.
No, my first reaction is that Dustin Diamond? Is that Screech from Saved by the Bell? I'm just kidding.
Oh man, that's hurtful. Not a show I've ever seen. Not a show I've ever seen, by the way. But I know who that is.
I'm just kidding. It does look like a guy that listens to REM. So there's that, Howard.
Thankfully.
Hey, so look, this Lakers sale, and Katie Baker from your website wrote a really good piece today. Every single day since this announcement, there's been some other piece of information, a think piece written, a podcast recorded, that basically has uncovered that Mark Walter's been running like a Ponzi scheme to run the Dodgers, siphoning funds through these insurance companies, through third parties. And a lot of people talked, and certainly around here with the Walker Kessler trade, with the Jazz owning 2 first-round picks from the Lakers and 2 other pick swaps, the way Mark Walter has run the Dodgers, it led us all to believe, the Lakers are going to be awesome under this guy because he has so much money. I honestly, Howard, in my entire life around this league, I don't think I've ever seen anything like this And it certainly is another puzzle piece to indicate that Adam Silver's criteria for ownership needs to be adjusted to be as reductive as possible. Tell me how you've kind of digested this news cycle.
I mean, like everybody else, my head was spinning when the news dropped the other morning, and every day since has been just trying to just wrap our heads around this. Among the things we've never seen before, and by the way, it just seems like today's NBA is just one series of things we've never seen before, including everything that goes on with the Lakers, right? Like the Luka trade was like, wait, what happened? How he was traded to Lakers? How? Why? What? There's just so many firsts lately, and this is a first. An owner buying, what a marquee franchise, any franchise though, and flipping it in a year, and not intentionally flipping it. He obviously did not buy it for the purpose of cashing out so soon. This is just the way things went because apparently, reportedly, allegedly, throwing all the qualifiers, he's got other issues that he needs to get straightened out, and so he needed to unload and liquidate. But yeah, the Lakers changing hands twice in a year is just bonkers, and being sold to Bob Iger and Josh Kushner, I don't know what that portends for the Lakers. I think Laker fans, of which I still know many, I think they were heartened by the pass off from the Buss family to Mark Walter and the Dodgers group because the Dodgers had such great success. And so they've built a lot of credibility and affinity in that market. And so there was confidence that they'll do the right things with the Lakers. And I think there's a lot of Laker fans who've had kind of mixed feelings about Buss family stewardship in recent years because on the one hand, Jerry Buss and then Jeannie have made them, the glamour franchise and all the success that they've had. But the Busses often ran the place pretty cheaply and didn't invest in a lot of more modern things like analytics and sports science to the highest degree. And I think there was hope that they were going to modernize more. I would assume that that's still the hope now under Kushner and Iger, but it's still just a very strange thing. And now, they had started to create all these connections between the Dodgers and Lakers and had some of the same management overseeing both and creating these ties. And now you kind of have to decouple them because the Dodgers will be a separate owner. So it's all very strange. What it means for the basketball part, who knows?
Then you have news that was basically revealed this week that Matt Ishbia and his mortgage lending company, which is the largest mortgage lending company in the world, essentially was siphoning off billions of dollars in dividends to the Ishbia family, like $3 billion in dividends. And they were able to basically push this through because the board of directors for the mortgage company is Matt himself, his brother, his father, and wait for it, Isaiah Thomas. And he used these funds to buy the Suns, and now like the bill is coming due, so they made this $27 billion bet on rates coming down, which they did not, and so now they're trying to recoup this $607 million loss through like a separate distress company that doesn't want to do business with them. You have Tom Dundon, a Dallas private equity guy that doesn't give a rip about the city of Portland, causing chaos with the Blazers. All of this is to say, Howard, Adam Silver was David's deputy commissioner forever. And we've talked about the differences between the two as men and as commissioners on this show. The reason I'm covering these stories the way I cover them is it genuinely makes me concerned about what the future of the sport is for the people who love the teams in their community. I mean, Ryan Smith is a tech billionaire, but he's a lifelong Jazz fan. He's a Utah. He wants the Jazz here. I just wonder what this says about the criteria or maybe lack thereof in place for Adam Silver. And look, I know that the board has to vote on it. It's not a monolith, okay? But you understand my point. I don't love this new wave of NBA ownership that don't seem to give a rip about the teams or the communities.
Yeah, and look, you can be from another city and still, have a passion for the team that you own, right? Like Mark Lasry in that group when they bought the Bucks. Lasry is a longtime New Yorker, and I think was generally, if I'm remembering correctly, a Knicks fan. But like he and his partners did a pretty good job with the Bucks, and they got a championship and everything else. And they built a new arena, and there was no intention ever to move them from Milwaukee. Like there's versions of this that are fine, but to your point, it's not even about where guys live or whether they do have to care about basketball at a minimum. They have to care about the NBA. It has to be more than just a vanity project, and they have to care about the community that they're going into and respect it. Tom Dundon clearly does not. I think Matt Ishbia probably does. He just has other issues. Like, there's just a lot of other stuff going on there with his other businesses and his general practices. And considering that he's only the owner of that team because they had to chase off the previous owner, Robert Sarver, for his misdeeds, it just looks that much worse. I don't know. I think there's clearly a series of things happening. You've listed a few of them with various team ownership groups that are troubling to say the least, and I think do fairly call into question the league's vetting process. The only thing I can say about it is, it costs literally billions now to own a team, minimum a few billion to many, many billion, to now $12.5 billion to get the Lakers. There are only so many entities on earth, individuals and private equity firms, sovereign wealth, all this, that can afford the price. And so when that happens, you have this much smaller pool to work with. And I think back in the day, I've always said this, you and I might have talked about this. David Stern's owners are not Adam Silver's owners. Like, the guys that you're, not only reporting to, hired and potentially fired by, but the guys that you're trying to corral as the commissioner, it's not the same kind of group. Because back in the day, a few million, maybe some tens of millions would get you a team. And there were, there was I think an ability to maybe be at least a little selective then. And look, Donald Sterling still happened, right? He is part of that old school group. Like, things still happened. But I just think that when you need the kind of billions it takes to own a franchise now, you're going to be, the bar may be lower because you're only dealing with a very small subset of the population. And they didn't make their billions by, being ethical, most likely.
Well, maybe we could just start with, let's make sure they're not criminals. That's
fine. Yeah, sure.
I don't know. I mean, Ishbia is in some hot water here, and I don't know how this is going to play out with Walter. And then there's just the optics of, like, Mark Walter was at the White House 3 weeks ago giving Donald Trump a Dodgers World Series ring, and then 3 weeks later, Jared Kushner's brother buys the Lakers. And there's a chance that Donald Trump could pardon Mark Walter for this hot water the way he pardoned Charles Kushner, the dad of the Kushner brothers, who had a $100 million tax bill due, and he was pardoned and also was accused of trying to buy a prostitute for his brother-in-law so he could blackmail him. Like, I don't know, man. Maybe I'm just on my soapbox because there doesn't appear to be any regulation anywhere right now, and it just feels kind of gross.
Yeah. Everybody's dotting, drawing the lines between and going full, like, bulletin board with rubber bands on the Kushner side of this and the Trump part of it. And I understand it. I would just say that until and unless something like that happens and Walter suddenly just, like, walks free, I don't think it's wise for us to jump to those kinds of conclusions. The fact is that Kushner and Iger were already in the NBA's kind of network because Kushner has owned a piece of the Miami Heat, or still does, and previously I think the Grizzlies. So he's been vetted as a potential owner by owning pieces of other NBA teams. Bob Iger, of course, very well known to the league because he ran Disney and ESPN for all those years and is friends with Adam Silver. And those two together were in the bidding process for the Vegas expansion team. So they're already in the system. They've already gone through some level of vetting, which means it's a much speedier process to be able to buy an existing franchise. They were potentially going to emerge as the team or as the group to buy the Vegas expansion franchise anyway, and that could have happened irrespective of whatever's going on with Mark Walter and the Justice Department, or the SEC. So I just, like, I get why the temptation is there for us to, like, start going full conspiracy theory, but I don't know if it's warranted yet. The other piece of it is, for all the Trump aspect of this and the Kushner aspect of this, everything that you can find out in the public sphere is that Josh Kushner, unlike his brother, is a Democrat and does not support Trump, nor does his wife. So why Trump would be, or his people would be trying to create some scheme to move the Lakers from Mark Walter to Kushner and Iger, I don't know that any of this actually makes sense in the end, but it's worth watching.
All right, let's talk Russell Westbrook. How's that for a non sequitur? We can move on from it. You know, I've been saying for the past number of years, and we had Smitty in studio this week. Spent 40 years with the Jazz. I was always going to be fascinated about how Russell Westbrook would be discussed. And I'm not a whole what does it mean for his legacy? But after he's done playing, he's a Hall of Famer. The numbers are there. He's a former MVP. And just from a pure competitor standpoint, in a league that seems to be comprised of players that are buddies with each other and don't, oftentimes doesn't feel like they're competing or trying to beat each other the way that it used to be. Like Russ was a throwback that way. He wanted to beat you. He wanted to watch you die. And I always enjoyed the competitive side of him. And from strictly a pure athleticism standpoint, for a player that size to average nearly 9 boards a game for his career in the highlight dunks, and there were great moments to watch, but I don't know how much he impacted winning. He never won a championship. Several great players did not, including 2 that played here, and John and Carl. But as you look back on undeniably a very impressive career, the good and the bad, what comes to mind now that Russell Westbrook has retired?
Yeah, I mean, total force of nature, one of the most exciting and electric players we've had in the last 20 years. In a lot of ways, you try not to invoke other names, right? But like you're always looking and saying like, this guy, this aspect of him reminds me of this person. You talked about the kind of that killer aspect of it. He's like, just like he wants to not just beat you, but destroy you. That is a little Kobe-esque to me. And I think he embodied that aspect of the competitive drive. I don't know that he had all of Kobe. I mean, I think he had a lot of Kobe's work ethic too, frankly. And there's a lot of guys in the league now who have the talent and the athleticism, but not necessarily the drive. He had the drive. He also had a lot of flaws in his game. And I think that's what made him such a fascinating figure and sometimes a maddening figure, because the numbers were just ridiculous. Like he made triple doubles routine. And once upon a time, it was like, like I can remember like 15-ish years ago, maybe 20 years ago, and be like, oh, look, Jason Kidd got another triple-double. Ooh, it's his 11th of the season. Like, he's going to challenge Fat Lever's record or something. Like, triple-doubles were really rare. And Oscar Robertson was, of course, the only guy who'd ever done it for a full season. And here he was doing that, Russ doing that multiple times. And so he made it routine. There's a lot to quibble about in the margins, but you could never question his intensity, his drive, his will to win. And he was part of an incredible Oklahoma City Thunder era and one team, one edition in particular that made the finals, of course, and lost to LeBron James and the Heat. And there was the MVP season after Durant leaves. I did not vote for Russ that year. I voted for James Harden. But, I understood the case for Westbrook. I think the flaws with him were always a little bit hard for me to get over personally because, shot selection was a problem. His three-point shooting was a problem. Eventually his mid-range shooting was a problem. Not the most disciplined offensive player out there, and certainly not the greatest defender, and didn't want to do anything off the ball. Had to do everything with the ball in his hands. And those kinds of players – like Iverson back in the day, like these are 2 very different players in terms of their physical makeup, but the ball dominance and lack of efficiency at times, and just the kind of the single-mindedness that could be what wins you the game, and it could be what loses you the game. That's what makes or has made Westbrook so fascinating. And he's a lock for the Hall of Fame. He won an MVP and a gazillion All-Star games, and I don't remember how many All-NBA nods, but he was awesome. And that's the thing too, right? This game, it's about winning in the end, but it's entertainment. And so, if you're looking for the most entertaining players, the guys who are never going to let you down, you're going to get a good show every night, he's at the top.
Don Nelson passes away. Don Nelson and Jerry Sloan had a bunch of great battles in the postseason way back in the day when he was coaching the Warriors. Oh, side note, excellent Fat Lever drop, Howard. Well done there. Before I forget. And, it's interesting. Probably one of the lesser known stints of Don Nelson's career is my father hired him to coach the Knicks after Pat Riley left for the Heat. And then Don Nelson said, I'm going to bench Patrick Ewing and start Anthony Mason at point guard. And they said, okay, Jeff Van Gundy, you're up. We're firing him. A very interesting man. And obviously 5 championships as a player in 11 seasons with the Celtics. And I believe he retired with the second most wins all time as a head coach, won the Coach of the Year 3 times. So your thoughts on the passing of an NBA legend?
Yeah, very sad. I did not know Nelly well. We were not necessarily on a first-name basis. I chatted with him a couple of times over the years. My buddy Mark Stein, of course, covered him for his entire Dallas stint, and he knows him well, so we've talked about him. He's just like, here's the thing about Don Nelson, and I can say this as somebody who covered him mostly from a distance, but got to chat with him a couple of times over the years. Just one of these larger-than-life figures, really colorful. He was just himself, and I think the reason I bring that up first, the basketball stuff is the basketball stuff. You rattled off some of the highlights. He was amazing. He was an innovator. He's a really important figure. But today's NBA, all due respect to today's NBA coaches who are technically very, very good at their jobs, and some of them great at their jobs, they are very buttoned up overall, even though this is the generation that doesn't have to actually be literally buttoned up because they get to wear like sweats on the sideline instead of suits. But they are mentally, emotionally, spiritually buttoned up. They do not give you much of themselves. There's not a ton of personality coming out. And, they're not going to, as Nelly did back in the day in a highlight that was circulating recently, go chest to chest with Karl Malone and bump him in the middle of the court while they're arguing with each other. Nelly he wore everything on his sleeve. He was fun. My best memory of him while on the beat was when I was covering the Lakers, and I was there the night that Hack-a-Shaq began. Everybody just calls it Hack-a-Shaq now. Well, it started because of Shaq, of course, and the person who created Hack-a-Shaq was Don Nelson. And so they're intentionally fouling Shaq, and he's getting really ticked off about it all, and he's really mad about it afterward. He just considered it to be, humiliating and obnoxious and all this. And so Shaq ends up calling Don Nelson, when we talked to him after the game, Shaq calls him a clown coach. The next time those two teams played, Don Nelson came out to the court with a clown nose, one of those red foam noses on his nose. It was just so great. It was just like, I can't remember. I think Shaq laughed. They were fine. And, that's how Shaq was too, right? Like Shaq was always going to have his emotions on his sleeve too. And so it was just a really fun moment. So a year and a plus ago, whenever at the NBA Finals between the Pacers and Thunder, the Coaches Association awarded Nelly with that Lifetime Achievement Award, the Chuck Daly Award. So he came in for that game, and he was sitting there courtside pregame. So I just went over to go say hello and reintroduce myself. And I just told him, listen, man, congrats on everything. And by the way, thank you for just being you and for making it fun for us in the media. And I reminded him of the whole clown nose thing, and he had a good laugh about it.
Very cool. Howard, last thing, and I'll set you loose. Who's the better conference next year, the East or the West?
I mean, are we saying head-to-head? Are we saying who beats each other in the finals? Are we saying who has the better 1 through 10? How are we quantifying?
Yeah, let's say depth, because I think it's fair to say that still, even with all the movement, San Antonio and OKC are probably the 2 best teams in the league. Due respect to the Knicks.
Yes, agree. But yeah, I think the Thunder and Spurs are the 2 best teams in the league. In terms of depth, 1 through let's say 10, because that's where the play-in range ends, right? It's probably the East. And I know everybody's going there already, this is the best the East has been in forever, and the East is better than the West now. And I get that, but the West does have the 2 teams that we all think have the most collection, the biggest collection of talent in the Thunder and Spurs. And also, as I'm looking down the list in both conferences, I'm not sure what the Magic are going to be with the same group running it back, and they keep flatlining. They've got a new coach in Sean Sweeney, who I think is great, but they haven't changed much else. The Hornets traded LaMelo Ball, so they have fundamentally changed a lot of their personality, probably for the better. Could be addition by subtraction, but I don't know yet. I don't know what the Heat will be with Giannis and Bam, but nobody else really of note. It's a little bit I'm not prepared to jump to that conclusion yet that the East is definitely better. in the 1 through 10 range. On the other hand, I can look at the West and have some of the same questions, right? We don't know what the Warriors will be. We don't know if the Clippers are going to have Kawhi Leonard or not and what they're going to look like. So let's just be happy that the East is not the bleep show that it had been for many, many years.
Fair enough. All right, bud. Appreciate the time. Have an excellent weekend. We'll chat soon. Thank you, Howard.
All right, Spence, take care.
All right, Howard Beck from The Ringer. He's done a little bit of everything during his maybe 40-year NBA media career. Always appreciate Howard's time. I think he does most of his social posting on Blue Sky, but you can find all of his writing and the podcast he does, The Real Ones, with former jazz band Raja Bell during the NBA season at theringer.com. All right, 1 hour down, 3 hours to go. Coming up next, Bowler's going to join us. We'll do some Utah football with Frank Dolce. Paul Pugmire will join us. Scotty Scheffler just carded a 61 and has a 3-stroke lead over Sungjae Im in the battle for the FedEx St. Jude Championship. Busy Friday show. Good to have you with us right here on ESPN 700. There's a chance that Frank Dolce is going to join us, but it's Frank Dolce, so you just never know. Latest on Utah football, Camp Scally wrapping up week 2 today. Of course, BYU, Utah State as well. So stay tuned for that. But a little Def Leppard in the background. I mean, it's time for the voice of the Utah Jazz. Buckle up, Craig Bowlerjack. Happy Friday, Bowler. How we doing?
Hey, Spence. Good to hear from you. I hung out with Porter about a week and a half ago. I think it was 2 weeks. We missed you, but we had fun.
No, I heard. I was hoping to get you and our guy Gordon in studio for a little old school big show action, but maybe we'll do that at another point.
We'll do it.
Yeah, indeed. You know, obviously the old school for our old school sports talk radio listeners. How long did you and Gordon do the show together? How many years was that?
Oh man, I think it was 7 or 8, I believe. Yeah. It was fun. We had a good time. He didn't pay for a damn thing, but other than that, it was great.
Well, and also when you do radio with Gordon, it's dog years. So you basically did it for 45 or 50 years, right?
You know what? I'll be honest. It felt like it.
Yep.
Like it.
No, that's how it goes. That's how it goes. But hey, I wanted to start with a little football before we get to some Jazz stuff, some schedule stuff, and Walker Kessler, back in town and all that fun stuff. Yeah, of course, there's been a changing of the guard up on the Hill. And all of us are, I would say, both hopeful and I'll speak for myself, also curious. That's what I find myself hopeful / curious for what Morgan Scally can do year one with these Utes. We had Mac in studio last week, and Mac came right out of the gates. He's like, 10 wins. Okay, we're expecting 10 wins. I'm like, man. But just generally speaking, first-year head coach, a lot of changes with people that live in Ann Arbor now and some players coming and going. What do you think year one under Morgan's going to look like?
Boy, Spence, I think I'm with you. Look, hopeful. Love to see him succeed, but also you just wonder how that transition, he had the bowl game and, now he's at Camp Scally. But it's really a whole different ball game. Look, it's difficult. I can only speak to this. When Hot Rod retired, it's tough. I mean, there's no only one Hots, and I jump in and you do your best. And, you hope fans embrace, and some do, and hopefully more than others. I think he has to put that, as I did, just try to put that on the back burner and just say, look, I'm Morgan Scally. This is how I run my program. And there'll be comparisons, I guarantee you. And I just think he has to just take the time just to make sure that he doesn't overthink it himself. Just go coach football. That's who he is. I ran into him at a Ron McBride fundraiser maybe 6 weeks ago, and he's Morgan. I mean, the guy is like, lives on battery power. I mean, just constantly he's an energetic individual. And, that's going to translate, obviously, onto the football field. But now he's the head coach. He's not a coordinator. So you have to kind of, I think, balance that, and he'll have to learn. There may be some bumps in the road, but he's got talent, and I'm anxious to see the Utes get going. And I'm excited to see what Kalani's got rolling in Provo as well. I mean, it's good to have two major universities winning college football games in the state.
Yeah, and of course, with Bronco Mendenhall up at Utah State, we've got 3 really quality coaches coaching our football teams. And, Kalani, Craig, has been in the news over the past week or so. And, it's been interesting for me to sit back and listen to these comments made by Kalani because in a lot of ways, and it's not just these 2 guys, but he's taking a lot from the Witt playbook where – for the past 4 or 5 years after NIL and transfer portal became a reality, whether Kyle was doing an interview with us on the station, whether he was at an event speaking to people in the community or addressing the media like after games or after practice, he took almost every opportunity to talk about resources and how badly you need resources in today's day and age of college football. And if we're honest, you've always needed resources, but never more so than right now because of the ability to attract talent based off of your economic standing in the ecosystem. There's just no other way to put that. And if you're not one of the teams that has a Cody Campbell, oil money, a T. Boone Pickens, or whatever it is, if you're not lucky enough to have Mark Cuban having attended Indiana University, then you've got to get creative. And The crazy thing, Craig, about the comments made by Kalani is that for me, the reason it's news, the reason it's noteworthy is that it really flies in the face of everything all of us have been led to believe about the economic situation down in Provo and just, where the money is being allocated. We know that it's been allocated to basketball. We know that. We know that because Ace DeBonsa, AJ's father, he is about business, okay? If you paid attention to the way the DeBonsas have gone about their process, they are business-orientated. It's a little bit like Michael Jordan's mom telling Nike, we get a piece of every shoe that he sells.
Exactly.
They create this logo for his shoe that they own. Rob Wright, $3 million. Scott Drew said that on the record. Kevin Young, one of the highest paid coaches in the Big 12 on the basketball side. I don't exactly know the specific details of what seems to be frustrating Kalani, but over the past couple of weeks, he has come across as someone that is not happy with what's going down in Provo. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a topic that probably won't go away real soon. I think it's a topic that is spoken about a lot in college athletics, Spence, more and more. I mean, I look at the top 5 teams in college football. All their NIL money is over $40 million. I mean, how do you, like you said, unless you have the alums who continue to write check after check to make the NIL, Texas Tech, for one, last year, I think led the way. And, Texas, has money to burn. And same with Georgia, Alabama. It's a problem. And, I think you make a great point. How do you distribute that to your athletic department, and what alum maybe teeters on one side or the other, right? I mean, you're right about the Bonsa family. They did it right. They got money. He's the number 1 pick. He has his own look, brand, and it's just going to continue to rise as long as winning and health stays on his side. But, yeah, I don't think it's a topic that goes away, not only for BYU but other schools as well. And that brings up the other conversation you and I have had before is, are there guardrails going to be put in place to make this more of an even playing field, or does it stay with the rich stay richer and the top 5 teams every year stay top 5? And those teams, by the way, all play for a national championship. I don't know. But I think fans want more. That's just me, old school here. But I think they want more to say, let's be competitive. And that means if you have to cut the pie, cut it. But I'm not sure that's going to happen.
Speaking of the rich getting richer and ownership situations, this Lakers sale, Bowler, is just wild to me. And every single day there's another piece written, there's another podcast recorded where Mark Walter, 9 months ago, it was ratified that he was going to be the majority owner. The offer was made more closer to a year ago, but he was basically the operating owner and governor for 9 months. And, on the scale of, on one side, there's the storyline of these insurance companies and Mark Walter essentially siphoning funds through a third party and fraudulent loans from his insurance companies to other businesses. There's information out there that he was selling insurance policies and annuities to elderly people and then using that money to invest in the Dodgers and the Lakers. Like, it does sound like a Ponzi scheme. I'm no financial expert. So that's on one side. And on the other side, it's he flipped the Lakers and made $2.5 billion in 9 months. Where the truth is probably in between, because that's usually how it goes. But you have Tom Dundon, a Dallas private equity guy that doesn't give a rip about Portland, basically dismantling the Blazers, and they're concerned they're going to lose their team. Matt Ishbia is being accused of misappropriating funds from his mortgage company to the tune of $3 billion. And they were able to vote yes to these transactions because the board of directors for his insurance company is Matt himself, Matt's brother, Matt's father, and Isaiah Thomas somehow. Like, all of these new owners in the NBA, like, look, Ryan is a tech billionaire, but he's a Jazz fan, and he's a local, and he wants the Jazz to be here. So I'm not including him in this new group of owners, but I don't know. It just feels a lot different. Adam Silver's owners are not David Stern's owners,
No, they're not. I think it's becoming more clear and clear. That's kind of the way things are swinging in the NBA. To make $2.5 billion in less than a year on a franchise, which of course is well celebrated. The LA Lakers, we know that, which means that what are the Jazz worth now? I mean, as this continues to climb, and Portland kind of is concerning. I love the Blazers. I love the history there. I like to travel to Portland. Do they want to move? Are there cities or do you know, Sacramento went through this. You remember Kevin Johnson was the mayor and they were going to say, okay, we're probably out of here until they got the new arena. And, you know, it's happening in Kansas City with the Chiefs. I mean, they wanted to, you know, build us a new stadium over here, or we're going to go to Kansas City, and Kansas City on the Kansas side was happy to appease. I mean, there's a lot of this information and a lot of these ownership groups that just, I'm not sure how they play the game. Spence, again, I'm no financial investor or expert by any means, but it just sounds odd to the normal guy out there who's just trying to pay a ticket to go to a game, right? But the billions of dollars that are out there and the NIL money in college and all that, again, it's capitalism, I guess, if you want to go there and people make money the way they can, but you want to make sure there's an honest edge to it, right? And those are concerns that I look at when I read the same stories you do. It's like, wow, how does that pass? How does that get through? But you know, it's an interesting time in both amateur and professional sports. NBA right now is a hot ticket, and if you can move the Lakers and make $2.5 billion in 9 to 10 months, man, that's saying something right there. And then also, I'm wondering what Ryan thinks. I mean, his value of the Jazz has to be double or more since he took ownership or stewardship from the Miller Group. So Gale and company. It's really fascinating to see what the value is now than it was even 2 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, the days of Larry Miller and $3 million buying half of the Jazz appear to be long gone, you know?
Long gone.
Yeah.
Long gone.
Yeah.
And running down to Zion's Bank, I think, to make that final loan and sign the papers before the 5 o'clock deadline. That was one of the first stories I covered when he made that big decision to buy from Sam Battistone. And think, Spence, you know, your dad was involved. The Delta Center was money borrowed overseas, and it was like a $66 million loan to put the Delta Center up as it stands today. To replicate that building, I can't even guess. Billions times 3? I'm guessing $1 billion. I mean, I don't know. But it's such a beautiful place with great memories, and I'm glad, Ryan and Ashley decided to continue the renovations and the upgrades. But, man, to build a building or to hold a city hostage with that is difficult, and that happens a lot around professional athletics. And Delta Center is a special place. I'm sold on that place, always will be.
Yeah, 66 mil might get you a roof these days. I can't even imagine.
Maybe.
Right.
Maybe.
Do you have any updates on the upgrades going on? I see some pictures that are just kind of renderings that are making the rounds on social media. Do you have any insight on what the building's going to look and feel like this year? Okay.
I tell you, I know that about what you do in the public. I mean, I've seen the photos, and we get upgrades. They're upgrading the arena. I get updates on what's going on. Really, there are very few people that are allowed in the building because it's a construction area, and I get that. But I think it's a great thing as well that the sites are going to be for hockey as well. And the ability to do that, again, I tip my hat to Larry and the architectures in the day. I don't know if any building could still stand the test of time to take down two back ends of an arena and build them up. And they still have one more year of renovations next year. So it's going to be a great spot. I think it's going to be enjoyable for hockey and basketball fans. And, the parking structure is about complete as well in the back lot. So it still has a lot of memories, but it's got a new look, and it continues to get a makeover even again next year.
All right, let's dig into the schedule a little bit. Some interesting, first of all, great announcement with Big T on the video. I thought that was really fun. Thurl was in studio a couple of weeks ago, just the best. So opening night is October the 21st at Memphis, at the Memphis Grizzlies. And the interesting thing about this, Craig, obviously, is Jaren Jackson Jr. makes his return to Memphis against their rookie Cam Boozer. So your thoughts on opening night?
It's amazing how all that happens, Spence, isn't it? I mean, the league is always trying to put together interesting matchups. I love it. I love that Triple J goes back. Boozer makes his debut against a former All Defensive Player of the Year player and Triple J. So I'm looking forward to that. You come home, you play 5, you go on the road and you play 4. One thing I noticed about this schedule this year, there isn't a lot of fatiguing, long 9 to 10-day road trips. The 5-gamer is in early March, and the Jazz have a 4-gamer early and a 4-gamer like the old Sloan days prior to Christmas. I think we get back the night of the 23rd, if I'm not mistaken. But there's a lot of 1 games, home and away. And I'm not sure if that's something the league is experimenting with, something I'll try to, dive into a little bit. But, they're always talking about wear and tear, travel, et cetera. But, the Jazz have multiple 1 games out, Sacramento, Oklahoma City, twice, Denver. Just look at the schedule, and, we go to Indiana and back. I'm not sure. The players will have something to say about that if they like that. It's a long way to go. Indy, okay, boom, we play and get on a plane, and within 24 hours you come back home and you play on your home floor. So there's always a lot of talk about fatigue, about players' health, about injuries. What's a tipping point, Spence, which is, I think, always being investigated and studied by the NBA. And this may be one of those seasons where they're just trying out some new things. But for me, just a 1 5-game road trip, I'll take that, and a couple of 4s and a bunch of 3s. So it's intriguing. I always look at this schedule and just kind of absorb it for like an hour. It's like Christmas, man. Like, wow, look at that. Okay, back to back in Phoenix. Going to Houston, Dallas, and then trying to figure out too that the Jazz have 6 national games this year, by the way, which is triple from a year ago.
See, this is a schedule broken down from the perspective of a broadcaster looking at his travel. That's what that was.
You know what? I do look at it that way, and I also, though, like to see now with the Jazz beyond the redo or the letting the young guys play. I'm very excited, as most Jazz fans are, to see who they are. And Spence, you know what? If you look seriously at the first 7 games or so, the Jazz could win 4, win 5. Just depends. Early season. But I can't wait to see what Peterson and Keontae do in the backcourt. I want to see what the front line is. How much do they miss Walker Kessler? And I really am intrigued with Will Hardy, who I know you have a lot of respect for, and him being able to coach in his 5th season. And not just develop. That's always going to happen. But to actually be let loose and say, hey, go coach these guys. Angels are saying, we got you guys. This is who you're going to coach, and let's go win. And I'm excited for him, but also excited to see what rotations he runs and the speed of the game, and because he's got the ability to go fast, go slow, midcourt. He can do so many things with this lineup. I think it's exciting, and I'm anxious to see those rotations. And if they go 8, 9 deep, and who's on, hopefully every guy that's on that roster will understand their role 12 deep and beyond. So we'll find out soon. Camp just around the corner, and we'll be playing in 6 weeks, Spence. It's amazing.
That's right. Walker Kessler is back in town October the 25th with the Lakers. He was traded, so this is not a Gordon Hayward or even I remember when Ennis came back and he just decided to be the WWE like heel when he just acted like such a baby, which by the way he's still doing, but different topic. How do you think Walker is going to be received when he comes back with the Lakers?
Oh, I think he's going to be embraced. I think he was a fan favorite. They saw him grow, had a tough sophomore year, came back big, 3rd season last year, 3 games before the shoulder finally put the kibosh on a season. And you know what he wrote, Spence? You remember 2 months ago when this whole process was beginning, how much he loved Salt Lake, the Jazz, the fan base. And that goes a long way, which is something Gordon did not do when he left town. And I think that will always be remembered for Hayward, and it'll also be remembered for Walker Kessler, who did grow up here. I mean, just like Gobert in a lot of ways. Rudy obviously had a longer stay, but I think Walker grew into who he is today. I like the kid. He's a young man now, and he always worked his tail off. And he was always trying something new to improve his game. You remember stepping out trying to hit threes for a short time last year. And, I wish him well. He's going to be playing in a different media spotlight. And that's going to be probably the most difficult transition for him in Los Angeles versus just Salt Lake. And with Luka there, the demands will be great. So anxious to see how he adjusts to that. And also, it'll be good to see him. And at the Delta Center.
So we were debating this earlier because we're all trying to guess where the Jazz are going to land. The Vegas over-under number of 34.5 still feels really low to me. I know the Walker transaction probably changes who they could be in the interim. Hopefully it pays off in the long run. But, LeBron goes to Philly. I still think Kawhi is going to end up in Toronto unless he ends up getting kicked out of the league. Atlanta is going to be better. Detroit's not going anywhere. Jaylen Brown leaves Boston, but for Philly, and Boston's still very good with Jason Tatum. The Knicks won the championship. The Cavs bring Mitchell back. I referenced the Raptors with Kawhi. There's a case to be made. Giannis stays in the East in Miami. I think there's a case to be made that the East might be deeper than the West for the first time in a long time. Now, the West still has Oklahoma City and San Antonio, and I think they're still the two best teams in the league, all due respect to the Knicks who won the championship. Jokic is still Jokic, and the Nuggets are still the Nuggets. And I'm not saying the talent in the West is bad, but outside of the top two, if I'm the Jazz, I don't know how scared I am of anybody else. I mean, Minnesota still has some juice, and we'll see if Durant's better for Houston. But if I just asked you, who is the deeper conference this year, the East or the West, what would you say to that?
Well, I think it's almost a push, but I think with LeBron jumping west to east with Jaylen Brown and Embiid in Philadelphia, it may give the East a slight thumbs up from me. The West, as you know, has always been just a dynamic, basically chainsaw conference with just uber talent. You're right about two things, and also about Steph and Golden State. Durant, what's he about? Is he's on 38 years on those legs, and again, the two best teams in my opinion are still Oklahoma City and San Antonio. So that kind of gives you a lean West, but I think in the total sense of depth, I think it does teeter just a bit to the East right now. LeBron's jumping from the Lakers to Philadelphia, I think probably tipped the scale in the Eastern Conference favor.
All right, Bowler, before I set you loose, we'll revisit this, but I'm wondering who you believe, and it's not about who starts, it's about who finishes. There's going to be a rotation of probably 9 or 10 guys, but starting 5, Utah Jazz opening night.
Oh, Spence, this is a toughie. I'm going to preface this by saying it will be decided in what I hope will be a very competitive camp, okay? Do they have some ideas? Absolutely. Here's what it most likely could be, and that is number 2 pick Darren Peterson alongside Keontae. Here's the rub, though. What do you do up front with Walker gone now? Because you're going to probably do the center spot right by rotation of players, and I see Nurkic and Markkanen. So now do you put Ace Bailey in that lineup? Do you put Filipowski there? There's a lot of different things that can happen, who accepts their role as the sixth man? A lot has been read and written about Ace. Would he be that type of guy? But at the same time, man, there were some moments last year that there was a wow factor involved, right? So it's hard. I hope these guys prove themselves in camp for Will Hardy and Austin and Danny and Justin to make the decision. But ultimately, I think, it's got to be Will Hardy saying this is who I'm going with, and this is my rotation. And it could be Ace Bailey as your first man off the bench. It could be. So it's intriguing to me. I don't know if there's a true answer, but those are kind of just some guesstimates right there.
Well, should be fascinating. I mean, the good news is Will has got a lot of options at his disposal, not just for a starting 5, but maybe for a 9 or 10-man rotation. So it's going to be fun, Craig, I'm sure for all of us, and certainly for you to be calling, hopefully winning basketball this year after a little bit of time away from that stuff, yeah?
Yeah, 17 wins 2 years ago, 22 wins last year equals 39. Here's the question. You just said ESPN had them at 34. Well, there's 37 in the last two. Can they jump to 39 or 40? That's my guess. I think the Jazz will be a great storyline for the NBA this year. I really do.
No, I agree. Hey, Bowler, thanks for the time. Have a great weekend, okay?
You as well, pal. Talk soon.
Craig Bowlerjack, TV voice of the Utah Jazz. Porter, is that Lex Luthor in the studio? Who is that scary-looking bald man standing next to you?
I don't know, right? I called security.
He's dressed. Don't flex. You have cankles, okay? Frank Dolce is actually here, which is a miracle. We'll catch a break. But before we catch a break, what do you know? It's time to start thinking about football, and we're only a few weeks away from the best time of the year. Now's the time to prep your field. Make sure you're using IFA's Step 3 for the weeks ahead when the weather is still hot. But as the dog days of summer give way to fall, it's time to start thinking about Step 4, our fall and winter lawn fertilizer. Either way, you can find out more by visiting ifa.coop online. Things are about to get weird. We're going to take a massive detour. Frank Dolce live in the studio. Keep it here on ESPN 700. Here it's Ray LaMontagne and Michael Franti. Like, please book somebody else. Is all I'm saying.
Okay? So let me just tell you why you may be thinking that. It's not exactly accurate, but Ray LaMontagne was supposed to perform there a year ago.
Okay.
I had tickets for that show,
Mm-hmm.
and so I got this weird email from whoever Red Butte, whatever the Red Butte service is, and it said, hey, we have to reschedule, and it looked like it moved from Saturday to Sunday. So we go, we get all packed the picnic. We go up there Sunday evening, and there's like nobody around.
Huh.
Nobody. I was like, who's not coming to this concert?
Yeah.
We walk up to the gate. It's closed. Like, the whole facility is closed down. So I pull out my phone and I'm looking it up. Well, they didn't change it from one day to the next. They changed it from 1 year to the
You
next.
forgot to look at the year on your email.
I didn't even consider the year. I didn't think they would cancel it for a year.
That's funny.
Or move it for a year. So he didn't actually perform there 2 years in a row.
Okay. Got it.
He was rescheduled.
We went up to see Drive By Truckers and got rained out. Red Butte. That's the last Red Butte show I went to. That was like 2 years ago. And I absolutely love that concert venue.
It is
can we
amazing.
book some, Trombone Shorty. No kidding. Can we just
Amos
book?
Lee.
Yeah, exactly. Can we just book some different acts is all I'm saying. Anyway, Frank Dolce live in studio. Here's how our relationship works. I essentially reach out to try to go to lunch with you or see what's going on. And then months pass and I get a random text like, I never hear from you. And then if you checked our text thread, I'm the one who has last texted you to see if we could actually spend time together. I'm the one that keeps this relationship alive. To that, you say what?
You might have to. I don't know that that's accurate.
How do you characterize it?
I characterize it as you're on my mind regularly.
That's true.
And
rent-free.
and then I feel like we're communicating more regularly than we do.
Yeah, and in reality we're not. I mean, that just explains Frank Dolce in a nutshell. The rest of us operate off reality, and you have whatever's going on in your head.
Well, I apologize. I think there's maybe a piece of truth in how you described our relationship.
Fair enough. But all jokes aside, you're one of my favorite people. You always have been.
Same.
And when we decided to actually make this happen after trying for a long, long time, all these memories always flood back. And there's actually a recent one where I pulled into you into golf. And I see that you're about to get out of your truck. And I'm like, I'm going to surprise Frank. And I'm going to go and pretend like I'm going to fight you. And I had just had knee surgery. So I get out of my car and I'm limping up with my knee brace on. And you get out of your car and you had like some sort of, you had just fractured a wrist or something?
Something.
We were both
Yes.
like badly injured, pretending like we were going to fight, just old men in the You Went to Golf parking lot, which I thought was hilarious.
That's so good. Yeah, that's I have lots of interesting memories. A lot of working with you previously in the radio.
Yeah, for sure.
Where, by the way, I always give you credit for this. I'd love to tell the story. My nickname that a lot of people know that nickname, that is you.
Yeah.
You're the genesis of the nickname of the Human Detour, which is so great. It fits in
I'm glad you give me
so
credit
many ways.
because I was telling Porter earlier, I'm a nickname guy. I like just doling out nicknames, and the Human Detour is one that I'm potentially the most proud of.
Yeah, you should be. It's very good. It's so spot on. I really enjoy when you have thoughts about your mom. I really like. I don't know why that is, but when you talk about your mom, your experience and your relationship with your mom, that's very endearing.
Did you do that to Detour intentionally, or is that a real thing?
No, that's an absolute real thing.
Well, I'm a admitted, unapologetic mama's boy.
I know.
I love my mother, as you know.
Yeah. And so I appreciate that relationship that you have with her. I love your stories about your dad are classic. One thing that I also think is really kind of funny is you play this kind. You're unrivaled in your ability to banter with people. And I mean, I like to try and keep up with you. Sometimes I just have to eject.
You just tap out.
Yeah. or I have to turn the tables and make it into like a serious conversation.
Yeah, I had a friend recently say to me, not everybody just wants to debate. Okay, we know that you're right. Just stop. Okay, and I, first of all, I'm quite sure that I'm not always right. I can just spin it to make you believe that what I'm saying is actually true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you say it with enough confidence,
indeed,
which you do. Okay, I know we're here to talk about the start of the football season.
Yeah, we'll get there.
And Utah, and whatever else is happening.
Yeah.
But I listen to you pretty regularly.
Thank you.
Congratulations on the new podcast. Sounds like you're having a good time.
Yeah, for sure.
I listen to a lot of sports broadcasts, all different, whatever it is, any type of sport. And I've really become a critic of what's happening in the broadcasting space.
Uh-huh.
I wanted to get your thoughts on that and how, because I feel like, especially in radio, TV may be a little different because you have the visual, but especially in radio, it feels like we're very familiar with athletics and sports, and it can be easy to mail it in. It feels like a lot of people do that. I always appreciate how engaged you feel in your conversation. I wanted to talk about that with you, how you feel about broadcasting in general.
Yeah.
What are your tricks? How do you keep yourself engaged? And Lemmy Harrington and I were talking about this last night. He told me about a podcast he was listening to. It's actually the Cam Newton podcast. And he says every time he listens to that, he's like, wow, I want to listen to that again. And I feel like that should be the broadcaster's motto is I want to say something, I want to do something that says to people, wow, I want to listen to that again.
Yeah. So, thank you for the compliment. It's nice of you. And for better or for worse, my whole life, I can tell you that I have been one thing, for better or for worse, and it's curious, genuinely curious. So there's probably some benefit to that. There's probably some drawback to that, because I've always been a seeker. I've always been curious about different ways of living. I've always been curious about different ways of thinking. I'm genuinely fascinated with people that are living their dreams and very successful. So I like to ask questions about, so like if I have a guest on, I'll give you, for instance, about a month ago, I interviewed Ryan Smith and Austin Ainge. And my first question was for Ryan. I said, I'm always fascinated by people who are living their dreams. You literally are living your dream. We ended up talking about Darren Peterson, the Jazz, and all that. But Ryan Smith is a lifelong Jazz fan who bought the Jazz to try to win a championship. Like, he's living the dream that most of us would have loved to live. So, look, you've done this long enough to know that there are certain people that do radio that are that are listening to respond. They don't listen to a word you say. And I actually have tested this with certain people that I've done radio with before, who will be talking, and I'll say something completely nonsensical to see if they pick up on it, and they don't, because they're listening to respond. I feel like I always listen to learn. So if I'm talking to you, I'm curious about your story. I'm curious to know how you achieved. I'm curious to know how you got here. What were the pitfalls? Life is not a straight line. It's not linear. We've all, up and down and up and down. There are very few people that just have had a straight line to where they are today. And those stories and that pathway fascinates me. So when it comes to just strictly interviewing, I want people to tune in and just hear a conversation between two people that are genuinely curious about each other. You can get sports news from anyone,
Yeah. Well, that's absolutely true. And it feels like maybe there's an agenda that people try to follow. I think one of the early things I learned in broadcasting is, I may have told you this story before, is I would be up reading the entire media guide and all of the statistics and taking pages and pages of notes, and then would get up into the broadcast booth, have the whole thing unfolding in front of you, but I'm trying to decide which tidbit I need to say because I prepared to say it.
Right.
So I have an agenda rather than responding to what is actually happening is probably what is more interesting than some statistic I had studied. So I think that resonates is the conversational aspect of the way you treat guests, and not just your guests, but the way you treat the radio program feels like I'm trying to have a conversation. I'm trying to reach out to the listener.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and I hope that's how it comes across because that's my intent. And then, these days, and when I got back on air over here, I told Kayvon, the president of the company, I said, look, we have to, at all times, we have to keep digital in mind. We have to meet people where they are, and we have to understand that all of our content has to be in podcast form. It has to be on the website. It has to be downloadable on your phone. For the people that still turn on 700 AM, thank you very much. For the people that are listening on 92.1 FM right now, awesome. We need you. Thank you. But Porter referenced, we just passed 4.5 million downloads online. And so as I'm talking to you, I always have in mind the guy that is not in his car right now, gets home from work and goes to go walk the dog and pulls up the podcast and says, oh, wait a second, he had Frank on today. I'd love to hear what Frank had to say. So over the next 45 minutes, he goes and walks the dog at night, and he's listening to what we're saying right now because the business has changed. And I've never been like a hot take guy. And also, I do believe, to your question about broadcasting, media in general right now is infiltrated with bad actors that don't believe what they're saying and probably have a pre-show meeting where, and let me be clear, this is not what's happening right now, but hypothetically speaking, I say, okay, Frank, today you're going to tell us why Devin Dampier is awful. Whether you believe Devin Dampier is awful or not, that's the side you're taking today, right, Frank? And I'm going to tell you why Bear Bachmeier is going to fail. Okay, here's our segment. Boom. I don't believe Bear Bachmeier is going to fail. You don't believe Devin Dampier is going to be horrible, but like the first take, Skip Bayless, Stephen A. Smith, that's permeated throughout sports media, it's not real.
No.
It's just a show.
Yeah.
And so the final piece for me is just like, and I say this to myself every day, go be you. Go be as authentic as you can. Agree with me or disagree with me. Everything I say into this microphone is who I am. I'm not here to put on a show. You know me off mic. I don't think I'm different off mic as I am on mic.
No, I think maybe you're even a little more challenging off mic.
Challenging?
Yeah. I think
Okay. All right.
I think that's a reasonable, interesting. I think that's a reasonable word for it. In the broadcasting space today, since you're talking about authenticity.
Yeah.
And by the way, we're probably navigating into territory that's a little bit taboo because as a broadcaster, you don't talk negatively about others in the space. That's just
Yeah, I will. It depends on who we're talking about. There are certain people in our business that drive me crazy.
That are just no good, right?
And also bad people.
Well, so that's the thing. I think there are people who want to be good, but maybe just don't quite reach that level. It's not like maliciously trying to be bad or they have an agenda or whatever. It just doesn't resonate.
Yeah.
And then there are certainly people who are there's an agenda, it's clear, and it's not fun. It's just not fun to listen to.
Yeah.
I just don't appreciate it. But in the broadcast space today, who would you say? Do you have a favorite? Do you have someone who you think is really authentic? I mean, I grew up with Chick Hearn.
Yeah.
Like you can't beat that. Vin Scully.
Yeah.
Like how do you beat that?
Yeah, he's not a play-by-play guy. I just think Van Pelt is like the gold standard in our industry. He's a Sports Center anchor, but he's like the last one that's a throwback. I think he's very smart. I think he's very articulate. I know that he does the work. And I think he's fair. And he's also respectful to the point where he's not necessarily, like, for instance, for years and years and years, Sports Center anchors, I'm trying to think of the guy that did like an outward, almost a testimonial on how pathetic soccer is. John Anderson took like a 10-minute Sports Center segment just to basically insult anyone who loves soccer. Now, look, I grew up very anti-soccer, okay? So I understand the faction of people that don't like it. I've worked in it or covered it for 22 years now, and I've grown to really love the sport. But Van Pelt, even not being a soccer guy, he would have Taylor Twellman on his show, and they'd have a respectful conversation about soccer. So Scott, I think, as an interviewer, I think he makes his guests feel like they're important.
Mm-hmm.
He's prepared to ask good questions. And also, I think he's just like a funny, like engaging person. So he's not a play-by-play voice, but I think Van Pelt's the gold standard in our industry.
Yeah. I think I would align with that. And he's a personality. Like, he has some fun.
Yeah.
I don't know that he... I mean, I guess I wouldn't say he takes it too seriously, but it's serious. Like, it's it's his job, and he does really well. I like the stuff that he does with golf. I think that he adds an element to golf, which I listen to regularly.
You know, that's where he started, right?
I did not know
He started with the Golf Channel.
I did not know that.
Way back in the day.
I did not know that. So that happens to be, since we mentioned it, that happens to be one of the areas where I think they just have to be losing viewership constantly.
Who's they?
Golf commentators. I'm just going to say golf commentators. It'd be like the regular. It would be the usual suspects.
You know who I miss is Johnny Miller, dude. Remember Johnny Miller on
was
golf?
The best.
Golf
Why
broadcast?
was Johnny Miller the best?
Because he told it how it is.
He just told it how it was.
It's hilarious.
And he had everything to back it up.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so he just told it like it was. And the guys who try to do that today, they just don't meet the mark.
Do you watch the Golf Channel?
Yeah.
What do you think about Chambly?
I'm conflicted because I think he's very smart. I think he's well-spoken. But I'm conflicted because there are times when he has a take that I'm the opposite side, and I have a hard time objectively saying that that's a good take.
Yeah,
it was well thought out, presented to the audience in a intellectual way, and I'm on the wrong side of it.
Yeah.
So I like, for example, I like DeChambeau.
You do?
Yeah.
What the?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's such a unique.
I can't stand him.
Okay. That's exactly. And Brandel Chambly hates.
Well, he hates anyone who went to live. I mean, he won't even.
That's true.
Any live guy he hates.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. So, that sort of stuff, I maybe that's where I don't align completely with him, but I think he's in terms of being thoughtful about his commentary.
Yeah.
Like, so if I had to take him or anybody else broadcasting golf right now, I would have to say Chambly because he it's like he works at his craft.
So it's interesting. First of all, you're not like a pro live guy. We don't need to go down that route, right? You're not like go live. You're not a live golf guy, are you?
No, I'm not a live. No, I wouldn't say I'm a live golf guy. I wouldn't say I'm a live golf guy.
What is it about Bryson that you like? I find him to be unbelievably unlikable. I mean, he holds like pre-round press conferences where he talks about his 3D printer 3-iron that he created and invented. He comes across as a guy who thinks he's the smartest guy in the room.
Yeah.
Like the Brooks Koepka eye roll thing was awesome.
Right.
When Koepka was giving the interview and he heard Bryson in the background just
he was bouncing around,
spewing his BS about whatever science experiment he came up with in his basement to put to his freaking 3-wood. The eye roll was every time Bryson talks, my eyes roll. I'm surprised you like him.
Well, I think to be fair, Bryson has gone through a transformation. Has
he though?
He wasn't my favorite golfer for a long time.
I know that's the narrative. Do you think it's the YouTube channel where he's like engaging?
I don't really watch his YouTube channel, but I watch how he engages now with fans. I think that's legitimate. Like, I think he's learned to appreciate his opportunity.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's the arrogant person he was previously. I think he's had some sort of transformation.
Huh. I may have just written him off because I just couldn't stand listening to him. I haven't really paid attention. Like every time because I love the Golf Channel. If I'm at home getting work done, it's usually in the background. And if I hear him, I just don't really pay attention. See, the thing about Chambly that I find interesting is the first time. So I'm new to golf, right? Really, COVID got me into it, and now I love it. I'm obsessed with it. I play as much as I can. I'm taking lessons. Shout out to my guy Jordan Bloxham up at T-Box in Centerville. I am obsessed with trying to get incrementally better, and I watch a lot of golf in a way that I never did. Like my grandfather, who you knew, Triple L, Lowell Leishman, may rest in peace, loved the game. And he would always say to me, you can be good at this if you want to. And I'm like, it's boring. I don't like to do it. So I wouldn't play. So when I first started watching the Golf Channel, it was after one of the tournaments, and I was watching their coverage, and Chambly started doing the Chambly thing, and I was like, this guy sucks.
Right.
I was like, what an arrogant little, skeevy little dude.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm like, all right, put your preconceived notion to the side, just listen to what he's saying. I'm like, okay, he's actually really, really smart. And we've had Rex Hoggard on the show a number of times, who works for the Golf Channel.
Mm-hmm.
He says Chambly has a legendary work ethic. He's like, he's the hardest working person I've ever seen in this business. So you got to respect that.
Absolutely. And that makes me align with him a little bit more. By the way, I watch him with whoever he has seated around him. And I don't know if you think it's noticeable, but I think it's noticeable that he's looking around like, these guys can't keep up with me.
Yeah. And they can't. I mean, he's not wrong.
And they can't.
Like that poor little Scottish dude, whatever his name is, he's trying his best.
He's trying so hard. He's got to be so, like, pit sweat after a show with Chambly.
Yeah.
Just trying to keep up.
Yeah.
He can't do it.
Yeah. One more thing on this, because the other, I don't know how new it is. For me, it started when, so Jim Dolan, who owns the Knicks, he fired Marv Albert because Marv refused to call a game as if he was the voice of the Knicks. Marv was the voice of the Knicks, but if you didn't know Marv Albert was the voice of the Knicks, you're just like, who is this genius calling a basketball game?
Mm-hmm.
I interviewed David Stern like 2 months before he passed, and one of the lines that always stuck in my mind was, I know God is in his heavens when Marv Albert is calling a basketball game, because Marv was just the best at it.
Yeah.
Mike Breen still does a remarkable job. To me, he's the best to do it. But there was this change that is now permeated in a way that's even more prevalent, where, look, here's the secret. We all want to keep our jobs. Everybody wants to keep their jobs. Okay, so we're the broadcast partner for the University of Utah. I try to do my job in a very non-biased way, but I also care about that relationship. Right? So I want to make sure that they feel like I'm being fair to them at all times. But you'll hear, like, nothing is fingernails on a chalkboard more to me than when I hear an announcer say, we've got to go on a run. We've got to figure it out. You're not on the team. You don't play. You don't coach. It is not we. You are a broadcaster. Call the action and don't be so biased. But what's happened now is there are all these people watching and listening, and they want you, if you're employed by that team, you better propagate the message they're telling you to propagate, as opposed to just calling a game, to call a game. You know what I mean?
I absolutely know what you mean. I always felt like that was part of my role, is number one, fan. Played there, blood, sweat, and tears, all that stuff. But you lose credibility without objectivity.
Yes.
And I always felt like I had that responsibility. It didn't always sell. I mean, I think there were a lot of people, including in the administration, who felt like exactly what you're talking about. Hey, you're the hometown broadcaster. Be the hometown broadcaster.
Yeah.
But I think it's a good point, is, and you do it really well, is objectivity has to win. You can still be a fan.
Yeah.
You can still be the number one fan. But objectivity drives people who become more attached to what you're saying, because there's a trust. You can build a trust if you're being truthful.
Yeah, no, well said. And I always want my listeners to know that if they listen to this show, they're getting the truth. I mean, it's the truth as I see it, obviously, because I host the show, but I I try not to be slanted one way or the other. People ask me all the time, who do you cheer for in the state? And I say all of them, everyone, because it's better for my business if Utah's winning, if BYU's winning, if the Jazz are winning. I want all of our teams to win every game possible because it's better for the show. People are more tuned in, and some people do hate listen. You know, if the team is horrible, they want to hear what the thoughts are to try to fix it. But last thing on this before we catch a break, the other thing to consider, and I honestly don't know the answer to this question, is what the consumer wants, what the listener wants, what the viewer wants. Do you as a listener want to know how the sausage is made? Do you want to know what's actually happening behind the scenes? Because the other prism that I kind of approach this through, I've been in front offices for teams. I've been in meetings where we are cultivating carefully a message that we want for the community to hear. And I'm not saying we would lie, but I'm not saying we were always truthful. So I hear a message coming from the Jazz, or I hear a message coming from Utah or BYU, and I can tell pretty quickly if it's full of BS, right? And so I try to approach it with, you know, the knowledge of cultivating a message, but at the same time, kind of reading through it to find out what the truth is. But if you're a Jazz basketball fan, do you want to know all the things that went into $1 billion in the back pocket of your owner to renovate the stadium downtown? Or do you want to know he threatened to take the team down south and the mayor here said we can't lose the Jazz and it was this power play, right? Like, what do you want to know? Do you really care? Do most fans just want to go watch a damn game and they don't give a rip about the things behind the scenes? I honestly don't know the answer. As a fan and as a consumer, do you want to just digest the propaganda that your team is feeding to the market, or do you want to know what's actually happening? And I don't really know what the answer is.
I think there's a spectrum of people who are just happy to have whomever it is, the universities, you know, just coat over any sort of controversy and make it sound right, and we're taking care of it and everything else. And there's a segment of the population, I would put myself in that area, that just wants someone to stand up and say, this is what happened. It was a mistake, or we did something wrong, or what. These are the steps we're going to take to correct it. We sincerely apologize to our fans. So I think there's a spectrum in that. I don't know. I would hope that we would get more to the objective, but it's really interesting how organizations manage difficult truths.
Yeah. And we could talk about this for hours. I mean, maybe we'll get to some of this on the other side of a break. But I remember last December, and Porter and I were getting ready to start the show. The intro's playing, and I get an alert on my phone that the email from Utah had spilled in that Kyle Whittingham is stepping down. And so I say to Porter, I'm like, well, we got to blow out the rundown because this is all we will talk about. And then I see, well, wait a second, there's no press conference. And then Stuart Mandel sends out the tweet like he's not retiring. And I'm like doing the math in my head. I'm like, it's Friday. Okay, we're doing a Friday news dump. There's no press conference. There's still a bowl game to be played. His agent clearly has leaked to Mandel that he's not retiring. And so instantly I'm like, something's up, right? And look, like you, I'm sure you heard from people at the school, administration, athletic department, like, hey, things aren't great and haven't been great for a minute. But then you have to decide what you go with on air because you want to make sure you're maintaining that relationship and you're not reporting something that isn't true. And over the weeks after that happened, I started hearing rumors from people that would absolutely know. And I'm like, okay, what do I say on air? Can I corroborate this? And then we get the records request. It was fulfilled. And we see the emails between Harlan and Witt and Witt's agent. And it's like, oh, so all the things that I had heard are actually true. And this thing that was announced on a Friday afternoon that didn't smell right, it didn't smell right for a reason. Right? So there are things like that happen. And then it's just, how do you handle it in this seat? You know what I mean?
Yeah. How do you manage that? Do you step out on a limb and say, I have experience in this. I don't know that this has happened, but this is what I think has happened. Or do you go with the storyline?
The answer to that on the other side of a quick break. Frank Dolce is live in studio. We will talk some Utah football, but it is time now for your Uinta Golf PGA update. Join Uinta Golf by Worldwide Golf Shops today for the latest deals on Ping, Titleist, TaylorMade, Callaway, Mizuno, and more. Club fitting technology, 90-day satisfaction guarantee, golf simulators, indoor hitting bays, full-service club repair and regripping, indoor putting green, experienced service professionals serving Utah golfers since 1971. Go to uintagolf.com. The World of the PGA Tour is at TPC Southwind in Memphis, Tennessee. It's the battle for the FedEx St. Jude Championship, and Scotty Scheffler carded a 61 today to take a 3-stroke lead over Victor Hovland, who must have birdied 18. Scotty's at 11 under par. Victor Hovland, Sungjae M at 8 under par. Ludwig Oberg at 7 under par. Jordan Spieth, Tommy Fleetwood, Brian Harmon, all at 6 under par. More with Frank Dolce live in studio coming up next on ESPN 700. We got Frank Dolce live in studio, former University of Utah quarterback, host of the new podcast, The Sinking Ships. Is that what it's called? It's something with ships, right?
It sure is.
It's not Sinking Ships?
It's not.
What's it called?
It's called Red and Blue.
No, not that one. The one about ships. You have my brother was on it. You have a podcast about...
Your brother was fantastic. It's called Know Your Ship.
Know Your Ship.
Know Your Ship.
Tell us about that.
We also... This is with my company. Well, I'm part of a company called eHub. We're a shipping and logistics platform, software platform. And I got tabbed and running a podcast.
Nice.
Or hosting a podcast called Know Your Ship. And, we're... Essentially, what we want to do is talk to people who are in the shipping and logistics industry and their experiences in running a warehouse. And unfortunately, that can be a little bit monotonous in terms of a podcast to talk about running a warehouse all the time. So we expand. This is.
I was going to be.
Did we cut this somewhere?
No. I was going to be a little bit more harsh with my feedback, but I'm glad you put it gently. I was going to tell you that sounds extremely entertaining, Frank. Let's talk about shipping and running a warehouse.
Yes. Okay. So how do you make that interesting? Well, this is such a good segue. Like the way that did you do this on purpose? So the way that I manage the podcast is I try to make it very conversational and dig into the individual and kind of these motivations. How did you grow up? What were your experiences? What are the important things to you? How did you land in this position? And then talk about some foundational business principles. Not just running a warehouse, but you could be running anything, any type of business setting. So anyway, it became more of a long form podcast, getting to know people in the industry, which I think is more interesting and fascinating than a strict. How do you run your warehouse?
What
podcast?
are your labels like, bro? I wouldn't even know how to do that. But you let's talk about cardboard boxes. But you and Alemma,
we call it packaging. We'll talk about packaging.
Again, not my lane, so I'm going to leave that to you. But you and Alemma are going to start a podcast over at KUTV, and I joined KUTV about 8 months ago, and 19 episodes of my pod in the books, and you guys are going to get started coming up next week.
Yes, we have we're getting everything organized. I hope that's not going to be a sinking ship. Red and Blue that's kind of the title right now. We're trying to work on a few things to incorporate whatever else, but essentially, if you're from the state, it's Utah BYU.
Right.
The basis of it is the collegiate football, basketball, all sports rivalry. We're going to talk about that. But I think what we're also going to try to do is, I don't think that's super interesting to talk about that all the time. And by the way, I know that you have listeners, people are listening now, and they're like, yeah, all I want to talk about is Utah BYU. That's not compelling to me. It is to some people. But that will be the basis of it. But I think what we can do is also take the collegiate footprint of athletics and incorporate that into the show and how that affects these two universities.
Yeah.
For example, the Big 12. I have a hard time believing that the Big 12 is ever going to sit in the same atmosphere as the two other dominant conferences.
Oh, it won't.
Right.
A hard time believing is a really kind way of putting the fact that that's never happening.
Okay, so if that's the truth, but the Big 12 is one of the big conferences, what does that mean for the future of sport?
Yeah.
College sport, and specifically college football. I'm even separating basketball out of this. But how does college football look 5 years from now?
Yeah.
How does it look 10 years from now? And what does that mean for all of the other programs?
Yeah.
I just can't imagine that it can keep going the way it's going and remain affiliated with universities and all of the requirements associated with that.
Yeah.
And pay these. You know what? This is really interesting. I used to say this all the time. Student athletes. I felt strongly about that. And you used to say to me all the time, What would you say to me?
It's a fake term because it was invented for the NCAA to avoid paying labor tax. That's a real thing. It's not. It's the same thing as like, hey, I believe in the collegiate model. Oh, you work in the ecosystem and you want to keep your job. It's not a real thing.
Well, fortunately or unfortunately, that's true.
I know.
Now that's true.
Frank, I'm usually right.
Ever.
I'm usually right, just so you know.
But I at least, when I was on campus, I at least had motivation to go to school, not the least of which is like there was a very slim chance I was ever going to make any money playing professionally.
Right.
So I had motivation to go to class, and I wanted to keep my scholarship and, all the things. What is the academic motivation for a kid who's making a couple $1 million or more a year?
Yeah.
That doesn't align with the academic mission of a university.
Well, correct, it doesn't. And, anecdotally, John Calipari was once asked when he was coaching at Kentucky, how many NBA guys do you have on your roster? And he said, I have 12. And the reporter looked at him. He said, go in the locker room and ask them. Because they all think
That's right.
They're all.
That's so true.
When you're 18 look, I thought I was going to be the starting point guard for the Knicks until I tried to guard Andre Miller. When you're 18 years old, 17, 18 years old, you think that you are so much better at what you're doing than you actually are. Mm-hmm. And you don't think about the long game. You don't think about when you're 45 and you weren't ever able to make a penny playing sports and what are you going to do? You just don't think about that stuff.
Right.
Some of them do, and the ones that actually get it do utilize this unique opportunity to get an education for free to go on and do great things. We have plenty of examples of that, certainly at the University of Utah. A lot of very successful Utah football alums that that never played it down in the NFL took advantage of the opportunity they had. Sharif is a great example.
He's the exact person I was thinking.
You know what I mean? And we could go over Morgan's a great example.
For sure.
Morgan never played in the NFL, but he used the opportunity to get an education, network, and now he's the head coach of the school. Like, there are some young men that either get it themselves or have good people around them that help them understand the opportunity that's in front of them. A lot of them just don't. Mm-hmm. And when it comes to what this sport will look like in 5 years, the reality is nobody knows. But the solution, to me, has been right in front of our face the entire time. Because what are the complaints that you hear? They're able to transfer every year. Mm-hmm. It's hard to build a program because they transfer every year. Mm-hmm. We have to figure out a way to curtail spending. If Ohio State can spend $80 million and Utah spends $22, that's not fair. If only there was a model for a football league where players don't leave every year and spending is regulated. Oh, there is. It's called the NFL. Mm-hmm. We have the model, and people recoil at it because it's like, no, I want my college football not to feel like professional. Guess what? The toothpaste is out of the tube. You need to let these players unionize. You need to figure out a model where they can collectively bargain. You have them sign contracts that say, okay, you're here for 2 years with a third year as a player option. If you're good enough to go to the draft, you go to the draft. But you can't transfer for 3 years because you signed a contract. And you come up with a salary cap and you curtail spending so you don't have a gap between Alabama and Utah State or whatever.
Such an enormous gap. I mean, there could be a gap. But
well, and look, there are layers in professional leagues where in the NBA, if you want to spend above the luxury tax, then you pay tax back into the system. It goes into the lower teams. Like, I know it makes college sports fans recoil because the thing we've always loved about college sports is it hasn't felt like it's unfettered capitalism. Guess what? It is. Mm-hmm. And honestly, Frank, has been for years. What people didn't want to say out loud is it essentially was a sweatshop built on the backs of employees they didn't have to pay.
Yeah.
And now you have to pay them, and people are terrified to call them employees. And everyone's like, well, they'll have to pay taxes. Oh, if only we had accountants and lawyers that could help us figure out.
It's a really good point.
There's just nothing that can be brought to the table to refute that we are there. So rip the Band-Aid off and just just go to the pro model. Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Okay, so now are we still saying that it's aligned with? So the University of Utah still has their football team.
Yes.
Yes, but you kind of sounded like you were questioning that.
Well, I mean, the University of Utah still has their football team, but you break away from the NCAA because what you can't take away is the funding that football brings to your institution.
Everything else.
And not just sports. I mean, look, the Pac-12 and 2 Rose Bowls didn't just change Utah football. It changed the freaking campus.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I live up on campus now, really close to it. I'll walk to football games, and I look around. I'm like, this isn't the school I attended in 1997.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was one of our local news stations who actually, over the course of the 2 Rose Bowls, did a really good in-depth piece. And I believe the prediction or the, just figure that they threw out there is as a result of Utah football going to 2 Rose Bowls, it received like $60 million in free advertising and enrollment went through the roof.
That's exactly right.
Dude, you go up there right now and it's California license plates, it's Colorado license plates. Like when you, and you're an out-of-stater, you're from California, but when I was up there, the majority of Utah students felt like they were I felt like half of them went to freaking East High. Or like Highland, right? Like
the majority of the student body was an East High Leopard.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you went to
a Highland Ram.
Yeah, oh, you went to Olympus
or Skyline
or Brighton,
yeah,
right?
Right. Absolutely.
And now it's like, no, I'm from Rancho Cucamonga or whatever the hell it is. People going to the University of Utah. These young people are coming from out of state in a way that it never was the deal.
Yeah.
So you cannot rip the football program away from the institution. The money is too big. Because if you do that, is there going to be enough money left over
for a soccer team, for a volleyball team, for a new facility, for all the students?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I don't think you can ever rip away the football teams from the universities, but leave the NCAA and do it yesterday.
I think that's really thoughtful. And of all of the thoughts I've heard about that, yeah, why not? Why don't you just the model is there?
Yes.
Why don't you just replicate the model?
Should I be the commissioner of college football?
There's no doubt.
Thank you.
Should I be the co-commissioner?
No, but you can come have lunch with me in my office once a week. Look, I'm not saying, while it's a simplistic solution, it's a complex situation because then, look, I'll go back to what we were talking about with broadcasters. Everybody wants to keep their job, right? Mm-hmm. So people that work for the Rose Bowl, they want to know, wait, what does this mean for the Rose Bowl? Because I work for the Rose Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
People that work for different areas of the NCAA, that if football was ripped away from them, then suddenly their job is in peril. Everyone's just trying to hold on for dear life to this cash cow that has supported them for so many years, but it's no longer sustainable. It's the only sport in the world that has free agency every year, every single year. So they took away one transfer window. Way to go, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's not enough. And the Protect College Sports Act has some things in it that I do think, if passed, which the issue is I don't know if it's ever going to get passed. They just pushed the vote back to September. I mean, one of the stipulations or, just kind of the bill outlining the financial ramifications would be every school has about $48.5 million. Okay, that's the $22 million you can pay as an institution, and then they're going to cap the NIL like 26, 27. And that means whether you're Alabama or BYU or Utah or everyone has the same.
Yes,
which has to be the deal. But what it doesn't curtail is this. Everyone leaves every single year, and you have to go re-recruit your players and hope that Devin Dampier comes back. And if he doesn't, you're screwed.
Yeah,
it doesn't curtail that. And also there's some language in there that is something that the Big 10, and the SEC are pushing back on, because I think what most people are really trying to avoid is this inevitability of a super league that breaks away from everybody else and takes away the top 40 programs in the country, and they go do their own thing. Because what that would do is eat up all the rev share, the market share for TV deals, and what would be left over for the reimagined Pac-12? Crumbs, right?
Yes. Well, I'm curious about the Super League concept, and if that splits off and also separates from the universities, I'm not sure that is a viable path, and I'll tell you why. How many NFL competitors have popped up and never gone anywhere without an affiliation to a university?
Yeah.
Or your alma mater.
Yeah.
Someone you can cheer for. So I think there has to the future of college sports has to still be aligned like that's a secret part of the sauce. Like you have to be aligned with the university. I think that's critical.
Yeah.
I always get nervous when so the Big Ten and the SEC kind of signed off on this, protect college sports. But when that happens, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, well, they only signed off because they know something we don't know. They're still going to control some massive amount of revenue or ownership or whatever it is, recruiting advantage, whatever it is, to maintain their status.
Yeah.
They have no interest in parity.
Mm-hmm.
They want to stay those two and everybody else. So I think that is also going to be an enormous obstacle to overcome, is how do you get I love your idea. I love your concept. Can you get the SEC and the Big Ten to play in that?
Well, the reality is the SEC and the Big Ten will be the two conferences.
Absolutely.
And will we call them that? I don't know. So, the unfortunate reality is that the Big Ten and the SEC don't really have to play ball with the Big 12 and the ACC. They don't have to. And what's crazy is you can actually, as the kids would say, they do say the quiet part out loud. Like when the CFP committee meetings were going on about the expansion, is it going to be 16 or 24? There's language in these articles where it's like, well, the Big Ten and the SEC have to sign off on this. It's like, well, hold on. And by the way, we know, okay? So we know that they have to sign off on it, but now they're just basically telling us, like, this is Big Ten and SEC, whether or not they think it's the right idea. The Big 12 and the ACC and everybody else, you're in the background. Everyone talks P4, Frank. This is a P2 reality.
Yeah, that's the truth.
And the Big 12 is a good place to land, but it's not where you want to be. I mean, look, as I've said over and over and over, I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall when Mark Harlan's phone lit up and he said, Kyle got what job? Kyle got the Michigan job? Because then Kyle suddenly moves into this area where he has resources that Utah will just never have. Michigan potentially has the biggest endowment in the country.
Yep.
When the Big Ten came to the table with their private equity deal, Michigan was like, no, we don't need it.
That's right.
Take your private equity and shove it. We have the biggest endowment in the country. It's also why I was kind of surprised Kalani didn't take Penn State. If you are in the college football ecosystem, you want in the Big Ten and the SEC. Everyone else is on the outside looking in. And it could be a lot worse than the Big 12, but it could be a lot better, and it's a lot better in those two conferences, and that's not changing anytime soon.
There's no way that BYU matched a Penn State package opportunity.
Well, have you been following the news cycle? Apparently, they haven't been.
Yeah. Which is all that's been an interest. Do you have a take on any of that?
Look, I want to be careful because, like you, love Kalani, right? I mean, that's my guy,
absolute best.
And so, we will catch a break here. Man, we should do more radio. It goes fast. So I want to put the caveat: I would never dream of speaking for Kalani, nor have I spoken to him about this. I message him all the time, but it's mostly like, hey, I hope things are going well type stuff. But I've known him long enough, and you've known him long enough, that he is not happy. It's very easy to see on his face. It's very easy to hear when he's talked about these things. They paid him, okay? So did they match dollar for dollar Kalani's contract? I don't know if they matched dollar for dollar, but the reports are $8-9 million a year for Kalani. I'm quite sure they took care of A-Rod, and I'm quite sure they took care of Kelly Papinga and the assistant coaches because Kalani wanted that. When he talks about what he's not getting down there, a few things really stand out. Number one, I'm being asked to do the most with the least. Because what we've all been led to believe is there are two big spenders in the Big 12. It's Texas Tech and it's BYU. But then he went on to say, I'm not even asking for what Texas Tech gets. I'm asking for what the others get. And so then you go, who are we talking about here? What is BYU not getting that Colorado is getting, or Utah, or whoever? So the most with the least really stood out.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know exactly what he's talking about. We're left to surmise based off of what we do know. Here's what we do know. The basketball team is getting support. AJ DeBonsa, $5 million a year. AJ's father, Ace, is about business. So if you want to tell me, BYU, that you weren't the highest bidder, fine. Maybe Carolina offered 5.1 and you offered 5. Cool. You weren't the highest bidder. But he's not going to your school without a bag.
Mm-mm.
Scott Drew, the head coach of Baylor, Rob Wright played his freshman year at Baylor.
Mm-hmm.
He was the Big 12 freshman of the year. He signed a $1 million contract to come back. Then BYU said, how would you like 3? Scott Drew gave an interview on the record about how pissed he was that BYU tripled the offer. Richie Saunders, 7-figure deal. Kevin Young, one of the highest paid coaches in the Big 12. Brian Santiago, basketball guy. So what we know is the basketball team does receive support. I don't have numbers for the football team. And, of course, on the basketball team, there are 12 players. On the football team, there are 1 million.
Mm-hmm. 85 scholarship, 105 on the roster.
But it's really hard for me to believe that Josh Hoover can get $4 million and Brendan Sorsby can get $5 million and Bear Bachmeier, who was the 4th freshman in college football history to win 12 games a year ago, couldn't have gone out and gotten that. So, therefore, I'm left to believe Bear's got to be being paid $2 to $3 million. So I'd be surprised if the football team isn't getting the same support as the basketball team. I'm left to believe that there were some NIL promises for players that he got as a result of staying at BYU that haven't been delivered. That's my best guess.
I think that's reasonable. I would also say that I don't know about the football getting like clearly basketball is the program that whomever wants to support. And I think that makes sense. Like if you're a donor, your $1 million in basketball goes a lot farther than in an 85-person football team.
Sure.
You can make an enormous difference much quicker in a basketball scenario.
Yeah.
What do you need? 3 guys and you're making a run. Like so that makes sense to me. The football program, just like what's kind of happening at the University of Utah, so if Ryan Smith says, this is all hypothetical, if Ryan Smith says, I want the football team to win, the billionaire at Texas Tech said, I'm tired of our football team being terrible, and guess what?
Yeah.
They're in the run the next year.
Right.
The very next year.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody says that, then at Utah, BYU, maybe Colorado, like any other program in this day and age, that is a reality. That can happen.
Yeah.
So I just have to believe that there is significant truth in what Kalani is saying. He doesn't have, as much as we might think he has the resources, he doesn't have the resources to compete, or at least think he has the resources to compete at the highest level.
That's the message. Yet they're one of the favorites to win the Big 12 this year. I
know, but tell me about the Big 12.
Well,
is BYU same circumstances? Are they going to be a favorite to win in the Big 10 or the SEC? No way.
No, Texas Tech smoked BYU and Oregon undressed Texas Tech. Like no one in the Big 12 is competing with the top 7 teams in the country.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So the Big 12 is like, if I'm looking across the broad collegiate football landscape, and I'm saying, is Utah competitive nationally? I mean, I don't know. I don't think so.
Well, I mean, go ahead.
But they're 3rd in the Big 12.
Yeah.
What does that tell you about the Big 12?
That it's not close to the Big 10 and the SEC, at least at the top. I mean, Utah can go smoke Nebraska in a bowl game, but again, the great thing about sports is it remains the ultimate meritocracy.
I love it. I'm glad you said that.
We have a scoreboard, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So for all the Big 12 homers and honks that are like, no, there's a bias against the Big 12. Oh, man, we don't get the respect that – go beat a team from that conference and not just Arkansas.
Mm-mm.
Okay, Texas Tech smokes BYU, and they looked like the JV playing the varsity when they played Oregon. So
right,
the best thing that – and we do have to break. I got to let you go. But the best thing that could happen for this conference is for BYU to beat Notre Dame when Notre Dame's in Provo, somehow, some way, get a couple of teams in the CFP and go beat some of the big dogs, not the lesser teams from the SEC and the Big Ten, not Northwestern. Go beat Ohio State, go beat Georgia, go beat Bama, go beat Utah. The biggest win in Utah football history remains Alabama in the Sugar Bowl, because it was freaking Alabama.
And you know what? They didn't know what hit them.
Well said. Where can people go find the Sinking Ships podcast and the red and blue and everything you have going on?
It's on wherever you can find a podcast. Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts.
Say the real name.
Know Your Ship.
Know Your Ship.
The Know Your Ship podcast. And we also have a podcast associated with charitable organizations. This is true in the state of Utah, also sponsored by eHub. It's called the eHub Gives a Ship podcast.
Thank you for landing that plane. Made me nervous. In fact, I was going to tell a story about
red and blue coming up.
Red and blue with Frank and Lemma with our friends over at KUTV. I still don't know that I can say this on air, even though you did. Do you remember when you discovered the supplement that Olympians were taking?
I sure do.
And you just,
how could I forget that?
You just went with it. I was like, I don't think we can say that on air. But hey, always good to see you, man. Let's do this again, and let's do it soon, okay?
You're the best. Thanks, Smith.
Frank Dolce, I want to let you know you can help Utah kids start school with confidence. Over 200 kids at the road home need your help with back-to-school clothes, shoes, backpacks, and more. ESPN 700 invites you to be a child's advocate. Visit ESPN700sports.com or AppleTreeForKids.com for more information and to donate now. We'll do a little golf with Paul Pugmire coming up next on ESPN 700. All right. Excuse me. We misbehaved with the clock, so we are late for this segment. I owe my next guest an apology, but it's always good to talk golf with Paul Pugmire on a Friday. Paul, how are you, sir?
Great. And Spencer, no apology needed. I'm the worst at managing the clock. Don't worry.
Well, I appreciate your time today. Where are you joining us from as of now?
Just on my way back from Riverside Country Club, where the first round of the Utah Open has been played. And we've got really a tight leaderboard at the top, and they're going low because Riverside is soft. And when these golf courses get soft, when they get rained on like they did last night, good players throw darts, and that's what's happening today.
Let's stay in the space of the local stuff, and we'll end with some FedEx St. Jude Championship. What should we know about this tournament, and who's going low? Who's playing well?
Jackson Reese recently turned pro, recently graduated from Utah Tech. He is currently at 9 under. He shot a 63 today, and you would think he'd be running away with it, but Simon Kwan is right on his heels at 8 under. And then it's just packed after that. There's a whole bunch of scores at 6 and 7 and 5. Like I say, a soft golf course is always gettable in every circumstance, no matter what else you can do to it. When it's soft, these guys can tear it up.
All right, so let's move over now to the FedEx St. Jude Championship. First of all, tell us about this track, TPC Southwind in Memphis, Tennessee.
Southwind it's a revamped old school course that the TPC system bought. Oh gosh, to me it feels like a couple of years ago, but it's probably been 20. And they turned it into a TPC course, which means that they turned it into a really fan friendly course. Put a lot of mounding around the greens for an amphitheater like viewing experience for the fans. This golf course is lush. It's a southeast course, and this time of year is so humid that everything grows, sometimes in places you don't want it to. But the real feature about Southwind is the zoysia grass. And zoysia grass is hardy. It survives these warm summers, but it is what sticky. The nature of the blade and the nature of the plant grabs a golf ball, and it's really hard to bounce a golf ball through it. It's really hard to move your club head through it if you're in the rough. And zoysia is a real challenge, and that's one of the biggest defenses that Southwind has is simply its grass type.
Now, this is the start of what, a 3-leg battle for the FedEx Cup? Is that the deal? Okay, tell us about that.
Correct. Yeah, so they're called the playoffs. It's not really a playoffs in the way that you and I and everybody else thinks of playoffs, because it carries forward the performance during the regular season into the what we call the playoffs. And so 70 players qualified at the end of the regular season last week at the Wyndham to move into this event in Memphis, the FedEx. And look, parenthetically, that's why it's in Memphis, because it's sponsored by FedEx, which is headquartered in Memphis. So pretty simple calculation there. Anyway, 70 players go into this. There's no cut. After today, everybody will play 72 holes. However, at the end of 72 holes, top 50 in points for the whole season will move forward to the next play event, quote unquote. And then after that, the top 30, but including regular season points, will go to the Tour Championship at East Lake in Atlanta. And then once they get there, then it does become a playoff event. And so the winner of that tournament is the winner of the Tour Championship.
So Scotty, of course, Scotty Scheffler today. How about a 9 under 61 for Scotty?
I know.
And look, you're tempted to say it was a down year for him because we've had so many different winners. I mean, I think this year has really spoken to the depth of the talent on the tour. But when Scotty decides to flex, Scotty can still flex a little bit, huh?
Absolutely. And look, it is fascinating to talk about this being a down year for Scotty, and I get the people tempted to do that. He has won once. Not only that, his win came early in the year at the Amex in Palm Springs. And so it's been a long time since he's won. But along the way, he has been statistically dominant. And he leads the point system by a mile because he's been dominant statistically. And he has a whole bunch of top 10s and top 5s, and he's got, I want to say, 3 second places. You know, you gather a boat ton of points when you're doing that. But he hasn't won since early this spring. And so the reality is, statistically, he's had the best year on tour again. And statistically, he is in line for, and I think really should be, the player of the year. He's had a better year than anybody, but he hasn't won like he has in years past. And so people think it's a down year for Scotty. And actually, Scotty gives off vibes like he's in that list. He's in that pack of people who thinks it's been an off year because he hasn't been carrying trophies. It might be that he's just become annoyed enough that he's going to go out and kick some butt this week. It'll be fun to see. I do want to note that it's been really fun to see Jordan Spieth playing well this week.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about Jordan because speaking of someone who hasn't won in quite some time,
Right.
and look, he's 5 back of Scotty, so it's probably going to be tough for anybody to catch him, but he's at 600 par. Tell me what you've seen from Spieth this week.
Flashes of the old Spieth in terms of the thing about the old Spieth, people view him as this recovery artist, and yes, he has created a highlight reel. I get it. But when Spieth was Spieth, when he was winning majors, he didn't make mistakes. He didn't give things back. He played remarkably steady. And that's what I saw in him in his first round when he was T1 after the first 18 holes. He was playing very steadily, and I was really glad to see that.
All right, Paul, as we often do, as we head into the weekend, as I already mentioned, it might be tough for anybody to catch Scotty, but Victor Hovland and Sung J M are 3 back, and Ludwig Oberg is 4, and they're all very quality players. How far down the list are you willing to go to get a winner?
Oh my gosh! On this one, the problem is my eye just keeps going back to Scotty. Somebody's going to have to do something special to beat Scotty, and he's going to have to stumble. Now, I think it's entirely likely that somebody does something special. I don't think it's likely that both of those things happen. And so, you know, and until I'm proven different, I know this isn't a very innovative take, but I look at that board and I look at what Scheffler's doing, and I just see him. He's going to be the last one standing come Sunday night.
All right, Paul, before I say you loose, what is coming up on the radio show tomorrow morning?
We will be at Riverside for the Utah Open. This is the 100th playing of the Utah Open, and we will be celebrating that history and talking a lot about great things that have happened along the way in the Utah Open. Used to be a PGA Tour stop. We've had major champions come to Utah back in the day to be a part of this event, and it's got a really history. We will be celebrating the Utah Open.
Paul, thanks for the time. Apologize for the delay. Have a great radio program tomorrow, and we'll chat soon. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Spencer.
All right, there he is, Paul Pugmire. It is time now for our final You Went to Golf PGA update. You Went to Golf by Worldwide Golf. Visit in-store for a free custom fitting at You Went to Golf or shop online at worldwidegolf.com. Get there for the latest on Ping, Callaway, Titleist, TaylorMade, and more. As I referenced, Scotty Scheffler with a 61 today. The World of PGA Tour. It's time for the battle for the FedEx Cup, and it's the St. Jude Championship today. TPC Southwind in Memphis, Tennessee. Victor Hovland, Sung J M, 8 under par. Ludwig Oberg at 7 under. Brian Harman, Tommy Fleetwood, and Jordan Spieth at 6 under par as the PGA Tour is now in playoff mode. Speaking of golf, go play Stansbury Park Golf this weekend. If you haven't played, I'm telling you, it's a great spot. Everyone's talking about it. Perfect combo of challenge, pace, and price. We're talking about $45 on the weekends and $45 on weekdays and $50 on weekends. There's no wait. It's actually pretty quick. Right off of I-80, super easy to get to. So book now and experience Tooele County at its best. Stansbury Park Golf, great rates, gorgeous greens, all just minutes away. Totally worth it. Book your tee time now at stansburypark.gov/golf course. That's stansburypark.gov/golf course. Sponsored by our friends at Tooele County. We got 3 hours in the books and 1 hour to go. Final hour of the program on a Friday is next on ESPN 700. All right, final segment of the show for the day and for the week. Fun week. Of course, we are inching closer and closer to the official start of college and pro football. We are less than 3 weeks away for the Utes, as Idaho will be in town coming up on September the 3rd. That is a Thursday. Reminder. You of course, can hear the game on this radio station. Kickoff will be at 7 o'clock, which I believe, in fact, if only we had the host of the pregame show available. Oh, wait, we do. That's that guy, Porter Larson. So, Porter, 7 o'clock kickoff, Thursday the 3rd for Utah football. Does that mean you're going to get going at what, 3, 4?
Yes,
3
o'clock on a game day, always about 4 hours before kickoff. So we'll have game day coverage from 3 until, I'm sure 11 p.m. or so.
There you go. And then as of tomorrow, we're going to be 3 weeks away for both BYU and Utah State. BYU welcomes in Texas Tech to Lavelle Edwards Stadium for a Saturday kick. Reminder, you can hear the Utah game on our station. The television coverage for that game will be ESPNU. For BYU, they're going to be on ESPN Plus. That is a 6 o'clock kickoff time against Utah Tech. They're a 47.5-point favorite. Go out on a limb and say they're going to handle that one. Bronco Mendenhall and the Utah State Aggies welcome in Idaho State on Saturday the 5th for a 5 o'clock kickoff, and that game can be seen on CBS Sports Network. So there you go. Inching closer and closer. All is quiet in the world of the NBA. RSL will be back at it coming up tomorrow against Minnesota. That is a 7:30 kick time on Apple Television. The Royals play Bay FC tonight at 8 o'clock Mountain Time. Go to UtahRoyals.com for tickets if you'd like to go check out the game tonight. There's a little rain in the forecast, but they're playing some really, really good soccer. So there you go. All right, let's get our weekend started out right. We've got some golf over the weekend, of course, some baseball, NFL preseason action as well. But, Porter, what is coming up on a Monday edition of the program?
Talked to quite a bit of golf on the show today. We'll do that again on a Monday following the conclusion of the Wyndham Championship. Your buddy Steele DeWalt will be in studio. We'll have a recap from Real Salt Lake over the weekend, either a front office man or a standout player from their return to MLS play. We'll hear from Morgan Scally on the show on a Monday. Of course, he will chat with us in the morning right after practice. And then, as we do each and every week of fall camp, our friends at Ute Zone will stop by. It'll be Dan Sorensen on Monday.
There you go. So that will be a great Monday show. Hope you have a fantastic weekend. Special thank you today to Howard Beck, Craig Bolerjack, Frank Dolce, and Paul Pugmire. If you miss any of the sound from the show today, go to the website, which is ESPN700sports.com. Make sure to download that mobile app. Take us on the go. ESPN 700 app is available in the App Store and the Google Play Store. And then finally, support our podcast page. It's a great way to consume what we do on your time. Our podcast is called The Drive with Spence Checketts. It's available wherever you get your shows. So subscribe, rate, reviews, say nice things in the comments. You know, the things we all ask you to do, because if you take time to do them, it actually helps us. For Porter, I'm Spence saying good night. Have a great weekend. Be good to yourself. Be good to each other. We'll talk to you on a Monday Drive. As always, you can catch it right here on ESPN 700.